The information provided by the speakers and/or presenter on Facebook and YouTube is for general informational purposes only. All information is provided in good faith. However, Constructive Talk makes no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of this information. The information provided by the speakers and/or presenter on Facebook and YouTube is for general informational purposes only. All information is provided in good faith. However, Constructive Talk makes no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of this information.
Movement is medicine. Sharpens your mind, balances your body, fixes your focus. Elbow your neighbor and tell them, you got to bust a move. Dr. King challenged racism in this nation, but realized he couldn't do it sitting behind the pulpit, which is why he sprung into, here it is, the civil rights movement. He marched on Washington. He pulled down the curtain of segregation for the mistreatment in the South to be seen by the entire world. He pushed back against unfair voting laws. He pulled down Supreme Court decisions of division and stood against barking dogs and fire hoses. To be clear, it was not an event, it was a movement. It was protest, legal challenges, civil disobedience, and boycotts, stretching every part of the American body politic all at the same time, because he knew stagnation would be the death of us. I rise this morning because we as a people have become lethargic, sluggish, and sedentary, because we've been sitting so long in comfortability that we no longer feel inclined to make a move. You are in such a rush to go to brunch, to go play golf, to binge watch on Netflix, that making a move is no longer even entertained in your subconscious. ICE in Minneapolis has killed an innocent woman named Renee Macklin Good. And as of this hour, the officer will face no penalty. We're going to have to make a move. An ICE agent threw tear gas in a car full of black children, some of whom are in ICU in this moment. Just this week, one ICE agent has been charged with SAing a detainee because it was the only way he would allow her to get visits. 1,000 more agents are headed to Minneapolis this week, not even realizing, ladies and gentlemen, that ICE is now the new slave patrol. The Klan no longer wears hoods, they now wear masks. They are no longer volunteers, they're being paid to oppress brown and black people. The budget for ICE must be frozen immediately. If it's in Minneapolis today, it'll be in Marietta tomorrow. If you don't say anything, racism and bigotry will continue to wield its head. But I'm so glad there's some witnesses in the building that understand I cannot sit still when other people are being marginalized. Donald Trump said civil rights has made white men get treated poorly. If they getting treated poorly, then black people are below welfare. They want to go door to door and arrest people with no warrants and no probable cause, and all while he has named himself as the acting president of Venezuela. He's asking Jamaicans and Haitians to self-deport, but has said nothing about illegal Germans and Italians and Swedes because they believe, here it is, that if you are black or brown, you are illegal, but if you are European, then you are permissible. Ladies and gentlemen, the cost of living is skyrocketing. Upcoming elections are being questioned. And military leaders who speak up for accountability are having their pensions being cut. We need a movement.
I want to start by reading a quote for you that is trending online now. Someone sent it to me and I saw it so many times. I think it's good for us to read this quote. I'm sure when I start to read it, you will be familiar with it. It says, out of hatred for the cockroach, the ants voted for the insecticide. Out of hatred for the cockroach, the ants voted for the insecticide. They all died, big on in the tail, including the housefly that didn't even vote. They all died, including the housefly that didn't even vote. It says an African proverb, but it could be a Trinidadian and Tobagonian proverb. It is so true.
All right, good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to those of you locked on to Constructive Talk. This evening, as you see, I have a guest that is going to be joining me, and it is Dr. Lovell Francis. He is here this evening to share with us some information, some valid information that I think everybody who is African, I'm being honest, I'm being real, everybody who is African should be sharing this live and this information that he's about to give to us today. I'm not even buttering it up. I'm not even going to play games, I told you. I'm not even going to try to make some pretty introduction. It's not about a pretty introduction. I'm sorry if I come in across. I just tired right now of us pretending that we are who we say we are. So, without further ado, I want to introduce to you Dr. Lovell Francis, former Minister of Education, former ambassador to South Africa, former member of parliament for
Moruga Tableland.
I'm in a shame. I've practiced it all day today, though. All day today. I even make my daughter come on the live earlier on today and make the announcement. You believe that?
Listen, it feels so long ago, even though it was only literally 10 years ago. So I can understand the hesitation to say it. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, I tell you, if you see me today, I'm sure that persons would have seen the live, because I saw over 200, 300 persons looked at the live where I would have I had my daughter. Did you see her? She Daddy, I say, hey, just say Dr. Lovell Francis going to be on this evening. And she,
Yeah.
join my father this evening as Dr. Lovell Francis. I say, right. See me now, well prepping high, you know. And I know this evening, forgetting.
You remind me of a joke, but I wouldn't say it on air. You remind me of a joke that happened to me, but I wouldn't say it on air. Don't worry, these things happen. Small thing, man. Small thing.
So,
how are you doing, my brother?
I am pretty okay, you know. I just kind of, boy, I watching what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago.
A friend of mine was from St. Kitts was just talking to me online there because our so-called Prime Minister is in the CARICOM heads of meetings and giving a speech that will never be forgotten. Listen, it is so embarrassing at the moment, but
embarrassing is a nice and beautiful way of just putting it across. I think this is surpassed embarrassing.
Yeah, well,
and it is planned. I mean, it wasn't an off the head speech where you just talking from the top of your head. We actually seeing you with a script.
It wasn't. And a disastrous script, an embarrassing script, a humiliating script.
Boy.
But this is the reality that faces us now, and I'm of the view that if you're down in the trenches, you're down in a hole, the only way is up. So we need to climb up and get ourselves out of this.
We need to.
As quickly as possible.
Yes.
And I have come home for a number of reasons. One of them is to ensure that I play some part in ensuring that we have a country left after all of this nonsense. So we will all have to do what we have to do to make sure that this thing called Trinidad and Tobago that all of us love, or most of us love, survives this ordeal that we're going through right now.
And trust me, it is an ordeal.
Yeah,
because let me tell you, we're talking a little bit of the politics before we get into our real meat of the matter. Dr. Lovell Francis, let us not, somehow or the other, I feel these people really think that we are really foolish, because Ms. Bisasa made a statement at the CARICOM meeting, Dr. Lovell Francis, about persons leaving their country and going to other Caribbean islands to campaign. Right? I have a video, Dr. Lovell Francis. I have a video of young black men eating pizza in a Caribbean island because they went over there to campaign.
Well, listen. There's always been a level of collaboration between political parties in the Caribbean if they have similar philosophies. So this is nothing new. What is new is this sort of subterfuge, this sort of undercover, this sort of James Bond, this sort of attempt to interfere in the politics of other countries. That is a new phenomenon. That is, anybody who is concerned with the ideas of Caribbean unity and us having a shared history and a shared culture and having a brotherhood or a sisterhood, however you want to term it, in terms of CARICOM and working together, the notion that a political party in one country could try to, let me use a polite term, unfairly affect the elections in another country is something that all of us should be concerned with. And it was something I noticed even in my time in Parliament, and I got myself in a little bacchanal because I made a statement about an interference just to the south of us that people interpreted in the wrong way. But you know, I am the type where the last time I get licked was in school, in primary school. You can't cut my tail. And I would say what I saw was happening. So this has been going on for a little while, and it is a matter of grave concern that we seem to have political parties now, especially one in Trinidad that is problematic, that is deeply problematic, that has no problem attempting to interfere in the internal politics of other countries. And if you listen to the Prime Minister of Barbados in the wake of her astounding victory, she even hinted at it. So it is a phenomenon that we now have to understand is happening, and we would do well to neutralize. I'll just be polite and say that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I listen, you know that of many other things, my profession is an historian. So it is one thing to read history, it is another thing to live through it. Right now, we are living through a piece of our own history that we will all remember for a very long time. But what I would say to our fellow citizens is that the easiest thing in hard times is to despair.
Yeah.
The one thing we must never do at this point is to despair.
Talk to
because
us.
that is part of the plan.
Talk to us.
That is part of the plan. Yeah. The things that are happening to us, the abuses that are happening to us, are not happening by accident, are not happening by happenstance. They are part of a concerted effort to have us destabilized and demoralized and dejected, where they can basically do to us what they want. Now, it is easy for me to say that, and also easy for me to suggest that we should not fall into that trap.
Right.
That's easy to say. It's easier said than done.
Done, yes.
But it is important that we understand that this is an orchestrated plan. Just like if you look further to the north, they're playing from the same playbook. They're following the same playbook. These things are orchestrated, and they are intended to have you so disoriented that you're unable to resist. You're unable to stand up for yourself.
Wow.
And we would do well to look at it and see it for what it is, and to do what people who have had a history of resistance, a history of struggle, a history of dealing with oppression have always done, which is to keep our heads up and to persevere and to fight. However you interpret that word fight. Put it in inverted commas, remove the inverted commas, fight. Because all of this is being done deliberately. We have to understand what is happening, and we have to come up with mechanisms to deal with it. And this is not new. We have dealt with circumstances like this before. We survived slavery, we survived indenture, we survived colonialism, we survived the police beating us during Canboulay, we survived people being attacked in Trinidad on the street during Jose. We have survived terrible things in our history. We survived living in a colonial state where a royal commission could come from England and say that people here were literally being paid wages where they would starve. That's where that phrase starvation wages comes from. We use it in a kind of bastardized way today, which is an insult to the history of the ancestors. Because back then they were literally being paid wages where they could starve. People have tried to do all kinds of things to us in this country, and we have survived. We will survive this. The thing is, as Trinidadians, we tend to have very short memories. And when you have very short memories, things become cyclical. People could choke out your eye more than once. This is something that we must make sure that as a collective, we do not forget. That is my worry. My worry is that we will survive, and then 5 years, 10 years, we forget, and we end up in the same khaki pants again. We must not forget what is happening right now. We must not forget the embarrassment we are facing. We must not forget that for the first time in our post-independence history, we standing with the imperialists. We standing with people being murdered on the high seas arbitrarily, like there's no law, international or other kind. We have never been that country. If it's one thing you could say about Trinidad and Tobago, despite all the faults or flaws we had, we have always stood on the right side of history. We can always hold our heads up high. This is the first time in our history where I am embarrassed to see the stances of my country is making and taking. But we've survived worse. We will survive this. What we must have at the end of the process is a collective memory and a resolve that we will never go this way again.
But Dr. Francis, we persons would have experienced similar or like behavior in 2010.
Yeah, that's why I'm making the point. That's why I'm making the point that the what we've been through this.
Yep.
We could argue whether it was as bad or not. To me, that's a nonsense argument because, I mean, it really goes nowhere. The error we've made is that we somehow colluded into a kind of an amnesia that has gotten us into this. But I believe if you vaccinate me against a virus, I want that vaccination to last for life. I don't want to go back and take a shot every year. I mean, some things like the flu, some viruses, you have to get a regular shot. But some infections, you get a shot and it's a lifetime thing. Yellow fever is a lifetime thing now, you know. I think we've had enough of this nonsense, enough to be immunized against it, so we don't go this way again. So my concern is not us surviving as a society so much. We will survive. We'll put the pieces back together. We will have something called a country after. My concern is that amnesia we love to fall into, where we forget and then we end up repeating past errors. That is where I have concern.
Wow. It's interesting because, you know, even the community that you would have represented from 2010, from 2015, when we look at what's going on there right now and we hear the cries of the people from that community right now, it tells you, it really tells you a lot. It really speaks.
I have been home for a few months. I am from here. I didn't come. I mean, I tell people I came here by car and I never left, but I came here by car 3 months old. So other than the years I spent in Africa serving the country, I have lived in Moruga all of my life. So I am not an importee. I was not an absentee MP. I was not an MP who lived somewhere else and would come once a week. I lived here. So whatever circumstances existed here, I also faced them because I lived in my constituency. You have a change in government, and a lot of people who are often the most marginalized people in society already are suddenly put on the breadline. There are some roads that only go one way. You know?
How are they dealing with that, Dr. Francis? How are they dealing with that?
People are reaching out to me every day. People are reaching out to me every day. And I, given my diminished capacity, I try to do what I could do, but there's only so much I could do. But it is perhaps as important that I understand what is happening to people. The circumstances are dire, the circumstances are dread. And we make arbitrary decisions that affect the lives of people, and then we turn our faces away at the ramifications. But these are real lives. When you put somebody on a breadline just before school opens and they can't afford to buy books for their children, they're not sure where the next meal coming from, you're affecting real lives. You're squeezing real people, and you end up squeezing the people who are least able to withstand the pressure. And that's a problematic situation for society to find itself in. It's a problematic situation for a small society like ours to find itself in. But when you are importing a playbook from somewhere else where there is scant concern for the most vulnerable. Like I made a post this week about the IMF that one of those people who does the IMF reports came telling me some kind of stupid joke a few years ago. And I look at him as if he had a disease on his face, and I just walk away because the IMF is happy when you squeeze in your people. I read every single IMF report on this country since maybe the 1970s. And every year they said the same thing. The economy is okay, but we have a problem with the transfers. Transfers in inverted commas. When the IMF says transfers, what they really mean is all of those social safety nets, things that we do in Trinidad and Tobago to try to make the lives of citizens, have a higher standard, a level of decency, a level of dignity that we as a society deserve all citizens should have. they generally have a problem with that. So they will say every year we spend too much money on transfers. But what is the state to do? Not spend the money that is the people's money to take care of the people. That's what a responsible state is supposed to do. But as far as they're concerned, countries like ours are not supposed to have that kind of standard, are not supposed to have that extensive a safety net. So anything that diminishes that, they're pleased. So I noticed the report that the IMF was a little, satisfied with us. That tells me a lot. That tells me that we squeeze in people here. And I was alive. I old enough to remember the last time we went to the IMF. And I'm sure many of the citizens are those who are over 40, those who are around in the 80s when we ended up in the grasp of the IMF the last time. If you have any recollection of that, it wasn't easy.
Nope, it wasn't.
It wasn't easy. And I don't want to go down that road because then that will become the whole discussion tonight. But I'm telling you, we are in a difficult situation, a dire situation. It is self-inflicted. We did this to ourselves. And there are clear lessons to be learned here. One is, we don't need to touch the fire to know the fire hot. We know the fire hot. We don't need to get burnt. We've been burnt. This is the second time, twice. By now, we should understand the fire is hot. We don't need to put our hands there. Or we had to accept that we are suckers for punishment. I believe in choosing option A over option B. It might just be me. I don't need to touch the stove to know the stove hot. I can feel the heat from far. Thanks.
Mr. Francis.
But we Trinidadians like to pretend they don't know what they already know. And that is one of our cultural problems we need to really, really deal with.
It is so sad, eh? It is so sad.
It's not sad enough. It is not sad. The one thing I do not feel is sad. It is not sad. It is instructive. I spend most of my adult life in education.
Yes.
I like to learn the lesson when the lesson is being taught. The best way to learn a lesson is free and without pain. We pass that stage. We end the pain. The least we could do is learn the lesson that is in front of us. These are teachable moments. When you think that governance is insignificant, when you think that all parties are the same, when you think that, no matter who wins, I don't have to vote because I had to work and feed my family the same way. When you have that laissez-faire attitude towards governance in your country, you will inevitably end up with somebody on top who is ill-equipped, unprepared, unconcerned, all of the above to do the job, and then you will pay the consequences. We did this to ourselves. We're not the first, might not be the last, but we need at some point to be mature enough to accept the realities of the situation. We sat back, having had a previous experience of this party running this country into the ground, and we decided to do it again. There is nobody responsible for this but us. So the people who have to get us out of this, that is also us.
Yep.
But we need to learn lessons in front of us. We need to learn the lessons in front of us and then keep going forward again.
Good advice. Great advice. And I think that persons who are listening to us this evening need to recognize that, in spite of it all, we're still alive, to make it right.
Yeah, and we'll be alive. We'll be alive. I'm not sure. My concern is not how long they last. My concern is how much damage they do. Our reputation internationally is already in shambles. We are now a laughing stock in CARICOM. These things can be repaired. They will take time. Our institutions are going to be further undermined. We can repair that. What we have to understand is that after this brain fever passes, because that's how I view it, like a brain fever, we have plenty of work to do. And it's really who down or who up to do the work. This ain't coming back like Lego automatically. There will be work to do, And we will need people who are willing and capable to do the work to put the thing back together. But at some point, we have to understand that our circumstances have changed and there is a greater level of maturity as citizens that is going to be required to make this country functionable in the future. That laissez-faire attitude we've had, that we've been coasting since the first oil boom, we got to go past that. I always tell people, Trinidad and Tobago is the one country in the Caribbean where when we spend $1, we don't expect $1's worth. Those times are over. We got to start looking at running this country in a way that is tighter, more effective, where we get more value for our money, where we make decisions based on better criteria, and we understand that we need to do the kind of renewal and institution building that we used to do in the past and that we suddenly feel we didn't have to do anymore. We have plenty of work to do. We have to become more productive. We don't produce enough. We always want more, always want more, always want more, but we don't produce more. How you will want more when you don't produce more? That's a dead end. We have plenty of work to do. And that work extends beyond just whichever party is in governance. There's a level of maturity and sensibility that we have to bring to the fore to make this thing sustainable and functionable into the future. Or we're going to leave the children with nothing or with rubbish.
Wow. It's really, really sad, though.
I mean, that's a logical response, but I don't feel sad. I am not sad. I'm not sad. I am not sad. To me, there are lessons to be learned here, and we better learn them.
And we better learn them quick.
And having learned them, we decide we're not going on this road again, and we do something different. And I'm not sad because this was not done to us. In the past, things have been done to us by people who were interlopers, people who didn't belong here. This we did to ourselves. So to me, it's instructive. It's not sad.
And I hope people heard what you just said, that in the past this was done to us, and it is important that we understand that it was done to us, and what happened. We had opportunity to fix it.
Yeah. If I lead you down this pathway, we will never get to what we really want to discuss this evening. So I apologize for taking you off on this detour.
Nah, this detour is important. This is what this platform is all about, Dr. Francis.
It is important.
This is what this platform is all about. I created this platform for discussions like this. I am not putting my down I'm not putting my down in no sand and pretending as though these things don't exist,
As a man who spent 4 years living in Africa, it always amazes me that people think that is a real thing, that ostriches put their head in sand. You know what happens to you, Pastor? If you annoy an ostrich, it will run you down and kick you in your head. Ostriches do not put their head in sand. That is a fairy tale. So if they don't do it, and they are famous for doing something that they never do, we can't do it either, so you're right. You're right. We can't put our head in the sand. We need to stand up and say, you know what, we made a mistake. You know what, it's costing us. You know what, we're going to learn and we're going to do better.
Yes, sir.
That's what we got to do.
Yes, sir. So this evening,
and we have to we got to be mature enough to accept who is at fault here, and the fault lies within.
Yeah. Very true. Very, very true. So this evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the world, and those of you who are coming onto the live, just let us know where you're looking at us from, because it's important that we understand and we know the reach of the platform, and interact with us a little bit. We have a phone line that you can make your calls when the lines are open. You can make your call too, and be a part of the discussion this evening on Constructive Talk. So this evening, I have my guest, I've seen it right? Dr. Lovell Francis.
Yeah.
He's on the phone line with me this evening, and he's here to discuss I'm going to let him, and I want him to talk as though he is. I want you to talk to me as though you're now informing me about this important African matter.
Yeah. All right, my brother. So we would have had a discussion a few weeks ago, and I told you I was involved in a reparations project.
Mm-hmm.
And you promised that we would have a discussion about it. And as usual, you're a man of your word, so we're having the discussion this evening. Now, if you mention reparations to Trinidadian people, they generally have a vague idea, at least a vague idea, of what that refers to. But you just gave me made a very important request, which is that I speak with you as if you have no idea what it is, so I'll explain.
Yes.
Right. So I am involved in a project that is seeking or struggling for reparations primarily for people of African origin for the crime against humanity of African enslavement and by extension colonialism, and also for the First Nation peoples of the region of Trinidad and Tobago and the region for the crime of genocide. But the main aspect of it is reparations for the descendants of those who were enslaved on the plantations in our country. Now, this is one part of a larger project that is taking place on both sides of the Atlantic. So the group I am with is called the Repair Campaign, and they are running two simultaneous projects. One is in the UK, where they're doing something very interesting. They're trying to educate people in the United Kingdom and Britain, Britain, about the things that were done during the era of enslavement, and that there is a need for them to make some kind of repair, to provide some kind of reparations, to make some kind of restitution. And on this side of the Atlantic, in the Caribbean, what they've done is they've chosen 4 countries: ours, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, St. Lucia, and St. Kitts. And they've hired a handful of people, I am one of them, to build out a movement that champions the cause of reparations. So my task is to educate, to inform, to ensure that this issue is a burning issue in the public sphere, to make sure that people are aware of what it means, and to drum up support for the idea with a more immediate objective in mind. So there is that. My interest in getting involved in this, even though I'm no longer in the bright lights of the public sphere, I still consider myself a public figure that has a duty of care to my country. I believe that Trinidad and Tobago spent a lot of money to give me a very expensive and very high quality education. And the least I could do is to use my abilities to try to make my country, my society, my people better, however we interpret that. So if you look at my Facebook, when I'm not making mischief and talking nonsense, which I do a lot, I am there trying to educate people, trying to teach history, trying to give us a sense of identity, trying to get people to understand the ways in which the past shaped us and influences us now to this day. So I was doing this, quote unquote, for free anyway. So if you tell me you're going to pay me a little stipend and my job is to go around teaching history, educating people about enslavement, teaching them the ways in which the effects are still with us. For example, Caribbean societies have amongst the highest rate of amputations in the world, which is tied to the prevalence of non-communicable diseases like high blood pressure and diabetes, which is tied to a diet that we love and eat. We have the best food in the world, which is tied in many ways directly to experiences out of the plantation during enslavement. And I have just drawn a straight line for you to show you ways in which that experience is still affecting us today. The majority, what we eat saltfish, we eat smoked herring, we eat oxtail, we eat pigtail, we eat all these things are things that come out of that plantation experiences, of the plantation experience. And whereas I would suggest we have the best tasting food in the world, I would also suggest one of the problems we have is that we, because of our history of enslavement, have found ways to make things that we arguably should not be eating taste too good. With all of the effects I just mentioned, the non-communicable diseases and people still having their limbs amputated in 2026. And that is one example. If you look at Afro-Trinidadian people and the stereotypes that are branded on us, that whole talk of Afro people being lazy, which is the most ridiculous thing imaginable. You can imagine people who would labor for 18 hours a day on a plantation, get licks, be starved, be under, they get no pay. Then you have to go in the evening and work on provision grounds because they're not feeding. The rations you're supposed to get as an enslaved person, you're not getting it. So you have to basically grow your own food. And at the end of that experience, the people who sit in the house doing nothing are calling me lazy. But you will still hear Afro-descended people in this country being called lazy today. I was seeing it online during the election. That is the most absurd thing possible, but it comes out of the experience on the plantation during enslavement. The fact that there is a lower rate of land ownership amongst Afro-Trinidadians is an experience that comes out of the plantation. And I could go on and on and on. The legacies of enslavement are still with us. But the important part for me, I will say to anybody, because they will always tell you, oh, you're looking for a check, you're looking for a handout, reparations is a handout. There is a custom on this planet that if you commit a crime against a group of people, that there is a procedure for treating with that. You acknowledge that you've committed a crime. You apologize for that crime, and then you make restitution. And the perfect example of that is the treatment of the Jewish people after World War II. They received reparations. The only people who have been treated in this manner, where an actual crime of this nature was committed against them and they have not received any kind of apology, any kind of full admission, any kind of recompense, are people of African origin. We are told
nowhere in the world
of this nature, of that magnitude.
Yeah,
millions of people. No.
Wow.
Of that magnitude. No. Of that recency, because they will tell you 1838 is a million years ago. It's not that long ago, you know. That is not ancient history. They will tell you, get over it. We are the only people who are told to get over our history. We are the only people who are told to forget, to move on. Everybody else holds on to their history. I was alive in the 1990s when a war started in the Balkans in Europe, in a country that used to be called Yugoslavia. And the day that war started was the anniversary of a battle that happened 800 years before that. And the people started that fight on that day in commemoration of that battle. But we are always told to forget our history. We are always told to move on.
Why you think
that happened a long time?
Why you think that is so, though, Dr. Francis? Why you think people would tell us, hey, oh gosh, slavery was so long ago, you only to get over it. You still want to blame slavery for you not being able to acquire wealth? You still want to blame slavery for you not being able to all sorts of things? Why you think that is so?
You ever argument with somebody And instead of dealing with the matter you raise, they want to tell you every other thing except deal with the issue, because they really want to make it look like you are the one crazy or you are the one who did something wrong, not them. In a debate, we call that strawmanship, where they'll build an argument that you never made, or the Americans like this term gaslighting, where they try to make you feel that you're the wrong one. All of this stems from a refusal to admit guilt, and a refusal to admit wrong, and a refusal to accept responsibility for a crime that was committed. It is easier to deflect and try to blame somebody else, try to pretend it's not important. You will hear, that was nothing special. There was slavery all over the world. Everybody was enslaved at some point. That is not true. What was done in the Caribbean, what was done in the Americas was a phenomenon that never existed before. And historians have done a reasonably good job. It could be better of distinguishing. There was something called ancient slavery or ancient enslavement. What happened in the Caribbean, what happened in the Americas and Brazil, United States, was something called chattel slavery, which was a whole different phenomenon, never existed before, where human beings become collateral damage for the rise of an economic system, where you are rendered less valuable than an animal, where your life is insignificant, where you will be worked to death in almost no time. Ancient enslavement was basically, there's a job I don't want to do, I will get somebody to do it because I don't want to do it. That wasn't what was happening in the Caribbean. What was happening in the Caribbean was people were being brought here to be human collateral for capitalist production, for wealth creation, for the stripping of resources from this region to go back over the Atlantic. It was a phenomenon that happened no time ever before, and I would hope as a species, as we grow and as we improve, it never happens again. It was a unique phenomenon. It had little in common with what would have been called slavery or enslavement before that time. It was absolutely new and absolutely devastating. And if you want an example of that, depending on where you went in the Caribbean during that period, your lifespan could be extremely short. Most Caribbean societies, if you lived to be 40 as an enslaved person, you were considered old.
Wow.
You were considered old because you were being worked and you would age before your time.
Yeah.
But if you went to somewhere like Saint-Domingue, which we know today as Haiti, you could be dead in a year from overwork because you're being overworked, you're being beaten, and then you're being starved. I said not too long ago, you're reading the history books about people getting rations of saltfish, rations of smoked herring, rations of pigtail, and that is why these things are part of our diet. What the books seldom tell you have to go to the primary sources, the real written sources to tell you. More often than not, the enslaved didn't even get that. They didn't even get that. So the few things you were supposed to get as an enslaved person, the clothing, the food, you didn't get that. You had to go and plant your yam and your cassava and your provision grounds to feed yourself after laboring in the plant in the fields. And I will say this definitively. We always think that it was men doing the hard work on the plantation. More often than not, it was women. The men were often in the factories making the sugar. Then people in the fields in the hot sun doing that labor were African women, quite often in majority. And I could go down a whole biological rabbit hole describing the effects of that. Ask any woman who overworks, who's ever tried to have a child, how difficult it is to conceive. We could go down a rabbit hole, as to the detrimental effects of these things on the ancestors. And then you're calling them uncivilized at the end of it. But on Emancipation Day, final emancipation in 1838, when our ancestors received legal freedom, and I'm making that clear, legal freedom, because the intent was to make sure that their freedom would be nothing more than the paper it was written on. Instead of burning down the whole place and massacring a set of people, they just went about trying to find their family members and putting their family together and went on with their lives. And not enough is made of that.
But
because it could have easily been pandemonium on these islands.
You know, while and I know that you are aware of this history of the Americans and their struggle. There's some people who say that, some people tell me I should not say it was a struggle, but I see some of their what they went through as a struggle, because they did not put them. They put them in remote areas. They did not put them in the city, well, what we will call developed areas in Trinidad. They put them in the remote areas of Trinidad and Tobago, and they had to develop. They had to develop a life.
So imagine this, right? You're stolen from your homeland. You're brought to America. You're enslaved. The British show up. They're fighting a war against the Americans,
and they ask you to fight.
Deal with you. They make a deal with you. If you fight, we'll make you free. At the end of that, you fight so well, they were like, you know what? We want to keep you as a troop. And the Americans are like, nope. We made a deal. We stand them at the deal. All right. The British bow, and they have to find a way to put them. They didn't come to Trinidad by accident. Trinidad, in 1816, was a reasonably new British colony, because the British had only arrived here in 1797. The majority of Trinidad, south of the border, and I know you tongue people feel Grand Bazaar is the border. It's not the border. Back in those days, a place called Mission, which we know as Princestown, was like the edge of civilization. Yeah, there were people living in Moruga, but to get to Moruga from San Fernando in the early 19th century, you had to go by boat. There was no road. There is a village called Indian Walk in Moruga. And if you have the cultural knowledge down here, you know it's because there was a footpath there that the native peoples in earlier times used to use.
Yep.
To head into what we call Moruga today. That's where the Indian Walk comes from. To get to Moruga, you had to go by boat. You had to go to San Fernando, jump on a boat and sail around and end up in Moruga. There was no road. So you bring these people at the time when Trinidad is still a colony within which they're enslaved people. You don't want to have free people of African origin close to enslaved people of African origin. That is going to be bacchanal. So you have to lose them people where you could forget them. So they deliberately put them down, and I'm going to use the right phrase, down here in the bush. To forget them, to lose them in the bush. And these people then have to carve communities out of forests. There's a Moruga road today because they literally cut a road from the edge of Princestown all the way into the last village in Moruga, which is Marak. That is like 40 or 50 kilometers a road. They actually cut into Moruga. So all of these communities down here were actually created by them. Basically, turning forest into communities. But the reason is that you don't want enslaved people of one hue and free people of one hue in contact with each other. You have to isolate them.
That is it. That is it.
You have to isolate them.
You have to, because you remember, the Americans came with the, how to put it, boy. Remember, they were not, as you rightfully said, they were not living in bush in America. Georgia that time wasn't bush.
Oh, it's a plantation state.
Thank you. So their mindset, but you have to give them credit. You have to give us credit to know, Dr. Francis, the will and the strong power, the strong mind and will to build and develop and live
tell you something. If I bring you down to Muruga,
You want to bring
and
me from
decide
there?
I given you an acre of forest land, and you had to cut down that land yourself to build a house for your family. How you think you're making out? How you think you're making out? You will catch your royal.
Yeah.
And you will have all of the modern implementation to do it. But if you have to do it yourself, you will catch your royal. You're putting people in 1816 in forests and telling them, create community. Telling them, well, hasta la vista, see you when I see you. And they didn't vanish. They didn't vanish. They created viable communities, and they're still here, and they still have their identity, and they have a tremendous amount of pride in it. And it is a travesty that we as a people do not venerate and celebrate them more. That they aren't in the books, that we aren't teaching about this in school. Because in many ways, our history is still a colonized history, or is still too much of a colonized history. Which is why nobody teaches reparations in school. Nobody teaches our young people that there is a legacy that they must carry on, that there is a struggle that we've been involved in, and a struggle that we must never give up on.
Right.
And it is not about sitting down and waiting, quote unquote, for a dollar from the white man. Part of the reason why I am involved in this is because I see reparations in a much broader way.
Tell us how you see it.
I am more concerned with the ways in which we can repair ourselves.
Right. Let us get into that a little bit.
I was in a conference in Africa.
Right.
And in the midst of it, some European envoy stands up and says, well, you know, we could use reparations as aid, and, you know, always trying to make us sound like if we are beggars with cap in hand looking for a dollar. And I said, listen, because you could almost see the steam coming out of my ears. Because of the mode in which it was said, the way in which it was said, the tone in which it was said. I said, I got up, I had to give a speech right after him, and it was perfect timing for me. And I said, listen, Caribbean people are not beggars. We are not beggars. I said, you came and you set up societies in the Caribbean to extract resources to make you rich. And when the cost of that extraction was too high, or you were not interested in extracting anymore, you went and you left us on our own. We didn't evaporate. We didn't fall apart. We built viable societies on these very small islands in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Caribbean Sea. We did it ourselves, usually without your help. And we have great pride in what we've done and the things we've created. We don't need a handout from you. Reparations is owed for a crime you committed. It is deserved. But we are not standing out here waiting for a handout from you. We are very good at fixing ourselves. So the thing that animates me is teaching people in my country who don't know enough of their history, that history. Using that history to repair the damage to our sense of self, our sense of identity. Using that history to look at things that we could do differently, to more self-actualize, to make our lives better, to progress better, to become more productive, to have more pride in ourselves as a people. And in this, I don't mean just African people, because to me, reparations is an Afro-Caribbean issue, but it's also a human issue. Because if you could look at enslavement, look at the evidence before you, and think that people of African origin are not deserving of some kind of recompense or what was done, I wondered what kind of human being you are. So to me, it is an African issue directly, but it is also a human issue. And if you can't see that as something worthwhile, I question your humanity. I do. If you can't look at African enslavement as a crime for which some kind of repair is required, and CARICOM has a 10-point plan that looks at specific things, education, skills training, not handing man a dollar, not handing man a check to just do whatever. Looks at fundamental ways in which repair can help to fix Caribbean society, help to fix communities, help to affect people at the grassroots level. If you don't see that as something viable, given the history we've endured and survived, I question what kind of human being resides in you. I question that.
So talk to us, Dr. Francis.
So for me, I look at it at both sides.
Right.
I look at it as a crime that requires recompense.
Right.
But I am also animated by the idea that we can repair ourselves. We can connect with our history. We can learn about our past. We can look at the present. I spent 4 years living in Africa. And I will say to the entire Afro-Trinidadian population and the entire population of Trinidad and Tobago, what you see about Africa in the Western media is a fabrication, is a hoax. Every time you see Africa as somebody starving, it's just crime, it's just destitution, it's just poverty, as if this continent is cursed and going nowhere. And when you go to Africa, I don't know where they find these places, They go out of their way to find the worst places as if that is all of Africa. Africa is a continent that could be the next economic superpower in the next 10, 15 years. It is already trending that way. It has the youngest population in the world. It has all the resources imaginable. And it's also developing a kind of political leadership that is doing what should have been done for a long time, which is using the resources to benefit the people. I am a big fan of that Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traoré, as are many people. And I was on the continent when he rose to power, and his rise is tilting the continent. It's tilting the culture of politics on the continent. Every president who won in the wake of his ascension to that leadership of Burkina Faso has to be talking developmental politics, has to be taking command of the resources to benefit the lives of the people, or you're not going to win. That old culture of a president who lives like a king and the rest of the country impoverished is going out the window. That old culture of lingering colonialism, especially in Western Africa, with those French countries, they're kicking out France. They're ending those lingering colonial ties. Africa is gearing up for a significant economic leap. And they are opening the doors to Caribbean people to work with them. That South-South partnership we keep talking about but doing nothing with. Now is the time.
Wow.
So there's a whole movement where reparations is centered in the Caribbean, in other parts of the diaspora, also on the African continent. Because I was involved in a lot of meetings when I was there where this issue was being discussed, and it is now a big thing for the African Union, and they are also buying into that CARICOM 10-point plans. There is an entire movement here that is seeking this. But I am more concerned with the consciousness of our people, with the connection with the history of our people, with the reframing of our identity of our people, with understanding what was done to us, that it has lingering effects, but that we could do things that fix ourselves by working, by learning, by reconnecting, by getting a broader understanding of who we are as a people, and that we can have better lives, better communities, better countries because of that.
So what have you done so far that would have brought some awareness to persons about, this transformation that you're talking about?
Well, the program I'm on is a first phase and it's 6 months. So the first thing I was doing is talking to a lot of people, trying to explain to them on the individual level what this was about, the direction it's going, what the plan is. You would have been one of the people I contacted.
Yes.
At this point, I have spoken myself to over 300 people.
Wow.
Plenty talk, my God. What I'm moving to another phase where we're going to be having a lot of community meetings, what they call house meetings, but what I call cottage meetings. But I've also decided to do something that I should have been doing maybe all along. It is very odd to ask people to support a reparations movement in the absence of providing them the historical education that makes it relevant. So one of the things I decided to do, if not every week, bi-monthly, host, I want to say a lecture. I don't like that Wise Man on the Mountain style of education where you know everything and everybody else knows nothing. I've never been a fan of that. But to host history discussions online and just try to do some educating in terms of the history of the people. So I'll be hosting the first one tomorrow evening at 8. So doing what I would argue I was put on this planet to do, which is to educate people in a way that is meaningful, in a way that resonates. So I'll be hosting my first session online tomorrow evening. I'll be talking about the history of enslavement in Tobago, in Trinidad, specifically, so people have the information required to understand how it operated in our 2 islands and the impact of it and the meaning of all of this. So I decided to go back and do some actual teaching as part of the program. I mean, it's not really built into it, but I think it is my responsibility, given who I am and the things I've done, that I should do this as a public good and as part of this larger campaign. So in the month of May, I'll be having some events. I'll be having some community meetings. I'll be hosted by some of our MPs in their communities and have some large meetings where I just go and talk and teach, but I'll be doing things online as well that anybody could access just to get that information out there. There are a million cliches about not understanding history and the negative impacts of that. They're all true. I am trying my best to do my part to make sure that we are more informed as a people, as a society, and to use it as a basis for building a better future, not just for us, but for all them little children that coming up. We have to pass on a legacy to them. And I am a big believer in that word legacy.
You know, there are some people who may just be interested in, yes, the history, but after we have learned the history and we understand the context in how we reach where we are today and how we're going to move forward, there are some people now will want to know, okay, teach us or tell us, how is this whole process going through? Is it going through? Is it a dream? Is it a pie in the sky? How close are we to getting what our just due?
That's a difficult question to answer, but it is an excellent question. I will be very frank with you. I cannot say that tomorrow the UK will stand up and say they apologize, they accept responsibility, and they're going to put so much and so much towards reparations. What I can say, it is happening already. It has already happened where private entities, private groups, private families, private universities have already done that and provided funding to try to fix the legacies of the past where they profited from or benefited from enslavement. So it's already happening. It hasn't happened at the state level, but it's already happened. But I'll be very frank with you. To me, it is less important that we ever get $1 from across the Atlantic if we get the education, we get that reconnection with self, we get that centering of self, We get that understanding of the real history of African people, which is once again in the midst, people trying to erase it, that we hold acts that have resonated and we do more to reduce and then eventually eliminate them. If we go through that process of self-improvement that comes from understanding reparations in a broader sense, we would have achieved, in my mind, as many benefits as receiving any check from over the Atlantic. I use this analogy all the time. My brother, who is just 5 years younger than me, decided late in life to become a middle distance runner. And he's actually very good at it. So yesterday he carried me and almost killed me by the Lara Stadium. Because I got my old self trying to keep up with him. Because, your mind as a man and your body as a man are often on different pages. You feel you could do it, but your body saying, no, this is not the right thing. He trains, if not every day, every other day. I don't know if he's ever going to win a marathon. It might happen, it might never happen. But I know his blood pressure, I know his blood sugar, I know his heart, his cholesterol. All of those indicators of health with him are now excellent. Even if he never win a race, the benefits of all of that exercise and all that training, he is experiencing that right now. And to me, reparations is just like that. Even if we never reach the ultimate goal, and I will say to you, I'm sure there are people on the plantation who never thought that emancipation would come, and then one day it came. One day it came. I am not saying that day will never come when it comes to reparations, but even if, let's say, worst case scenario, that day never comes, the benefits of the self-repair are immense, unquestionable, far-reaching, maybe further reaching than Adala. And that is how I see it, and that is why I chose to get myself involved in this.
Okay. So if people want to get more information about this, and they think that their family members and even persons who are up the Caribbean want more information and to get in contact with you, how can they do so?
I mean, they could WhatsApp me. I am 465-1060. I ain't ashamed to say my number, nothing to hide. They could email me at Lovell Francis.
You call that number too quick, boy.
Too quick. I started to talk too fast there.
Yeah.
465-1060. And I know old fogey. You could WhatsApp me and you're sure the guy responds. 465-1060. You could email me at lovellfrancis@repaircampaign.org. lovellfrancis@repaircampaign.org. You could DM me on Facebook. I'm responding to that. I am not a difficult man to get in contact with at all. You can message me on Facebook Messenger. I'm going to answer you. You can message me on Facebook. I'm going to answer you.
All right. Well, I want to take some calls because I want persons to be able to interact with you and ask you whatever questions they have concerning the program, and even getting the relevant information or things that they may think that you may not have mentioned this evening on the program. So you want to take some calls on 464-7003, 464-7003. So this is a chapter from the UK that you are involved with, Dr. Francis.
They're based out of Jamaica, but they operate in the UK and the Caribbean.
Okay.
And they fall under that whole CARICOM umbrella, so they are part of that whole CARICOM plan for reparations. And I just found myself intrigued by the whole thing and got myself involved in it.
And what about the Windrush? Are they part of the Windrush? The Windrush community?
The Windrush community is really those people who went over to the UK in the 1960s to help rebuild after the 1940s to help rebuild Britain after the war. So I wouldn't say directly, but it's all part of the same legacy of Caribbean people trying to make the best future for themselves on this planet. So
Okay.
there's a legacy there, but I don't think they're directly involved in that way.
Okay. Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you, Pastor Gabriel, Mr. Francis, Dr. Francis. Well, I'm so glad to hear this
Good evening,
program
sir.
tonight.
Good evening, sir.
You know, yes, as you were talking about the slave that placed on the Moruga path. You know, hello?
Yeah, we listening to you,
Yes, sir, I'm
caller.
listening.
All right.
I ain't talking to anybody
I said
talking.
to
I'm
the
listening
slave
to you.
that on the Moruga path, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Those were skilled people. Those were skilled people. Fighters,
Yeah.
top fighters on the war, and skilled people. Some came with even the instrument. The old piano, I could remember some of my great grandparents with some of those old piano they probably used to play down in the south, and guitars and stuff like that. So, what I want to say, in any situation you put the African, they always come back very strong. And that is what we beat most of the things that we go through in life and come out on top. But what it is, I observe, other nations have a fear for unity, togetherness. You understand? Anytime they see Africans getting together, they recognize that power. And they do everything possible to divide and conquer. And it always, like, I don't know where some Africans have come from to be bought. And I have to say that either by, not probably by cash sometime, or by some position. It's going on in Africa right now with Showe. And so many different Africans that they eliminate through that same thing by using, how you call it, how the modern people call it, eat our food, African.
Yeah. Yeah.
They give them a food and they decide to eliminate or do something to destroy a group. And that is the biggest problem among the Africans to me. You understand?
All right.
All right.
I
Thank
say
you very
again-
much.
Thank you for your comment. All right,
Yes,
I'll say two things. This notion we have that the enslaved people who ended up in the Caribbean were without skills is really a byproduct of Eurocentric bias and racist thinking. Even if, in the most rudimentary sense, if I take a Trinidadian man and take them to Africa and tell them there's a pond here and there's some mud here, and I want you to create a village out of that. And that's all the resources I give you: mud, water, and some branches. And you have to create a whole village. Typical man here can't do that. So even at the most rudimentary level, none of those people who came from Africa were devoid of skill. Some of them were highly skilled. Some of them were also highly trained. And if one of these days we end up talking about the Haitian Revolution, I'll explain what I mean by highly trained. Many of those people, there's no accident that Haitian Revolution kicks off and those people are ready to fight. Many of them were soldiers. So this notion that Africans were just somehow just backward and foolish people who were devoid of any skill or any ability is a myth. People have skills and abilities in the context within which they live, or else they would not survive. The very idea is absurd that the Africans came here without skill. Cooking is a skill. Construction is a skill. Farming is a skill. And people came with myriad skills, some of them highly technical. That's a myth. And to that other side of the issue, there's a particular phrase that the Afro-Americans say that might be unpleasant to note, but it is true. They tend to say all skin folk ain't kin folk. And I think if the caller understands that phrase, it will make sense to him. Listen, even back on the plantation in the Caribbean, there were people who you couldn't tell about the revolt because they're going and tell Massa. That has always been with us. That is part of human nature. You just keep an eye on them.
All right, let's take this call.
That has always been the case. Not everybody could have been part of the revolt.
Yeah, man. Hello, good evening.
Some of them, if you tell them, they run in to tell the slave master. That has always been a part of it. So, nothing new under the sun.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Pastor Google, Doctor. You know, Doctor, a couple of years ago, you would have had a discussion with Miss Parrott. And in that book,
yes.
You all would have discussed that book, Blood Legacy by Alex Renton, which was one English family's history of slavery with specific to Tobago and the Bloody Bay area. I went and I bought that book and read it. A very chilling book. The book is, for me, was almost as visceral as reading the Haitian Revolution. And I think for many, the Black Jacobin, by C.L.R. James, a seminal book about our slavery legacy. And you see that thing that you and Pastor were just discussing about the impact of the Americans and how it was. Remember now, these were men who were intimately involved, as the soldiers of the American companies, who were intimately involved with the struggle to create North America or to create USA, to free the 13 colonies. And you recall that the founding fathers considered them 3/4 of a person, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, the question about treating them equally and giving them equal status was never one that would come. And if people read the Federalist Papers, this was one of the seminal issues discussed at length between the founding fathers who were slaveholders and those who wouldn't, men like Benjamin Franklin and so on, John Adams and others. And they fought hard. And listen, because we're breaking away from what our ancestors ran from in the UK and come here and still continue with chattel slavery. And the compromise was, well, listen, we will leave that open-ended, we will declare the thing, but once these people fight with us and we become free, we will separate from them. And for a long time, that was the unanswered question, right? That led eventually to the Civil War, right? Whether we would include these people fully as citizens, right? It took the 14th Amendment for slaves and the children of slaves to be counted as American citizens. But I'll move forward, right? In terms of our experience, I know there's the Caribbean Commission for Reparations. Is your body any way involved in that, sir? That is one question.
Yeah.
I'll ask.
They fall under the same umbrella. So they are part of that whole movement and part of that 10-point plan as well. There is no point in having a movement in the Caribbean for reparations and everybody singing their own hymn from their own hymnal.
Correct.
That disunity that would be problematic. So everybody has to sing the same hymn from the same hymnal, have the same plan, have the same agenda. So yeah, they fall under that CARICOM 10-point plan. But you made a very interesting point there, talking about America. I just call them up north, but talking about the situation in North America, in the United States. Now, I mean, we don't really think about it. We became independent in 1962. Trinidadians were voting long before that. At the time we became independent, people of African origin in America were not yet citizens. They had no right to vote.
And they didn't have the same voting rights. You understand?
And they didn't have the same voting rights.
You see, these things that we take for granted, you had to do a poll tax in places like Mississippi, Alabama. In fact, the whole sort of the Mason-Dixon line, you had to do a poll tax. You have to, in some states, you have to go to the courthouse and check how much jelly beans in a jar and so on to register to vote.
Yeah.
We didn't have to go through that. We didn't have to go through that. From the time adult, the first qualification for an adult subject in Trinidad and Tobago was being male and being a landowner when we first were able to vote. And then it came down to for a woman, 21 years of age and so on. So we were and we take these things for granted. So the 102,000 people who didn't participate or didn't vote for the PNM, this is the legacy of our right to vote here. We didn't have to fight for it. We didn't have to die for it, right? But I want to end by saying
other people have died for it. Other people have fought for it, and we take it like it has no value.
Right, and one of the things, right, that I would want people to cast their mind to is this. This is the second decade for people of African origin designated by the United Nations. We had the first decade, they gave us another decade. So we have 20 years for that. And I'm saying we had to use that too. And additionally, you were correct when you said that some private entities would have signed on and of their own accord apologize. But the royal family, who under Queen Elizabeth financed the first company under Sir Francis Drake to go and raid slave ships and bring Africans, they have never apologized. They will never apologize. And what I'm saying is that I think that we had to lead a movement in the Commonwealth that we will withdraw from the Commonwealth if that apology is not coming. That is the kind of hardball I'm saying we have other face. Now, for me, reparations is about putting us in a place of economic power, educational power, and being able for us to seize the opportunities given to us by our brothers in Africa who have given us the right of return, particularly in Ghana and Nigeria, where we could go and develop businesses and relations with them. That is why I want to see the reparation question continue. It's not about me getting personal money for what our ancestors would have gone through. But I think if we do that, and we join the hub, where Africa is projected to have the youngest population in the next 20 years. By 20, Africa's median population right now is 19 years. When you look at Europe, it's 36. America is 40-something. And with 100 million smartphones in the continent now, think about what we could do with fintech and AI, where Africa has been using pay by mobile phone for more than 10 years. And if we could get those linkages through business and with the power of reparations, we could be great. We could be great together with South-South trading and creating a different economic paradigm than the one that has remained from since the mercantile system created through African chattel slavery, that is the cornerstone of modern capitalism that we talked about. And people like Google President Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are benefiting from. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, gentlemen. And
I don't have to add or subtract to what you just said there.
Thank you very much. Well, Dr.
I
Francis.
don't have to add or subtract.
Dr. Francis,
entirely on point.
You hear any kind of callers and listeners and viewers that's beyond constructive talk, you know. That's the level. That's the level we are at on this program.
Well, I can see why you named it this.
Constructive talk.
It's clear. It's clear why you named it as you have.
Yeah. So we taking some more calls. 464-7003. Okay, before I even finish call all the numbers, somebody's on the line. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening to you, Pastor Google and Dr. Francis.
Good evening,
Excellent
sir.
topic tonight. Now, that last caller makes some good points. However, though, what I would disagree to him is that we don't have to wait for reparations to link with the continent of Africa. We're supposed to be doing that all now. Also, people need to understand reparations is a holistic point of view, but mainly is financially because the enslavers benefited financially. It's all about extracting resources on the backs of our ancestors for free to build up their nations.
Yes.
Remember, they tried it with their own people first, but their own people could not withstand the conditions that these tropical islands had. Don't forget that. And
Yeah.
they had
I
to,
agree.
and they were not skilled enough. They were not skilled enough to even build stuff. So they had to go. They had to look and scour the planet to see who are the best people that could handle the terrain and also are skilled enough to build things for free. We need to understand, in order to defeat the system of white supremacy, yes, we need to learn our history and so forth, but that could be done all the time right about now. What we need to focus on is like what Dr. Claude Anderson has said. We have to recycle our dollar and build an economic powerhouse where no matter what era we're in, we could withstand anything the forces of the system of white supremacy throw at us.
You know,
America.
mhm.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I was going to tell you, you called Dr. Claude Anderson's name, and I remember interviewing him. I remember interviewing him some years ago, and I know that he wasn't too well. I don't know how is he doing now, but I would love to get in contact with Dr. Claude Anderson again.
Yes, I think you should. Because, as what he rightly says, the people that they call Jews, which is Caucasian people who adopted a religion called Judaism, because those study what those white supremacists say about Jews is mixed with Arab blood. That's not true, right? Over 90% of the so-called Jews came from Northern Europe, right? So these Jews, they recycle their dollar over 30 times before it leaves their community.
That is why they have a community in London called Dalston. And if you go into that
Correct,
community in Dalston in the UK, the Jews they everything is in that area. Everything Jewish that you want is in that community. Everything
Correct,
Jewish.
right.
And they don't move out of Dalston.
They don't move out of Dalston. They don't. So the white folks recycle their dollar on 20 times. Same thing with the Chinese. It's only our community. They say it lasts basically about 8 hours. Our money lasts 8 hours, then leaves our community. That is the problem. In order to get reparations, we have to have a thriving economy where we command it, not demand it.
But Stanley Line caller, Dr. Francis, is that another aspect of the discussion that you are going to be having where we need to educate each other on wealth, black wealth, how to sustain and maintain black wealth in our community?
I am, and I have always been, since my very young years, on board with the concept.
Okay.
So when I talked about the history and the importance of it, I wasn't referring to that in any kind of airy-fairy way.
Okay.
The assault against people of African origin in our country, in the wider Caribbean, did not end with emancipation. I mentioned that there was an intent to ensure that emancipation was a legal change and no other change. And one of the concerted efforts that was made was to try to ensure that there would be no kind of economic emancipation for people of African origin. And preventing them from owning land was an integral part of that. Preventing them from acquiring wealth was an integral part of that. Every time I hear the word squatter in Trinidad and Tobago context, I get annoyed. I get annoyed because in 1783, we had something called the Cedula of Population, where French planters came to Trinidad And each one of them was given 32 acres of land for themselves and 16 acres per enslaved person they brought. So if you bring 10 enslaved people, you get 160 acres. It's the greatest example of free state handout in the history of this country. But yet, after emancipation, people who labored and were not given any recompense for their labor, the recompense went to the slave owners who got a massive amount, 20 million pounds. They also refused to sell them land. They passed laws wherein the land could only be sold in huge parcels that were too expensive for people to purchase. So people went and lived. You call them squatters. So you're giving away land free on one side, but a person who's taking a little piece of land to build a house for their family, they are a public nuisance. They are a squatter. So I wasn't talking about history in any kind of airy-fairy way. We need to understand what was done. You can't repair a situation that you don't understand. And a major part of that, the caller is absolutely correct, was economic. There was a concerted effort to ensure that emancipation would never have an economic dimension. You were supposed to remain in the same situation, a beast of burden providing labor.
Say that one more time, Dr. Francis.
So the intent of the colonial state was that Afro-descended people would remain beasts of burden providing labor. Emancipation was never intended to be economic.
Correct is right.
Economic freedom. It was never intended to be economic. It was never intended to be political.
You see,
Correct.
Dr. Francis, you see what you just said there? How many of us understand the context in which what you just said? Because at the end of the day, and don't get me wrong, you see, we have reached a place where people are very wary of these discussions, Dr. Francis. Don't get me wrong. Listen to where I'm going with this. People are very wary of discussions like this. Why? Because some people believe that the only way you could really understand the full context of this discussion is if you come into into their religious mindset. But you are peeling Portugal apart without even getting into the religious mindset. You are showing us as a people. This has nothing to do. This has to do with now we have to reprogram our mindset, Dr. Francis, because it's getting this whole thing is getting to a point where now people have to sit back and realize that this thing is bigger than how I would have perceived it throughout the years, how it was presented to us.
Yes.
So,
yes. But you have to start by understanding. If you don't understand, you're operating in a vacuum and you're going nowhere.
We
have to start by understanding.
But even so that we understand, I always tell folks, as much as we delve into history, and history is important, we have to remember we live in the present time, and we have to use the tools that we have presently to build that economic empire for our grandchildren. We must not forget
no disagreement at all. No disagreement with that. None.
Right.
Thank you very much, caller.
You're welcome, sir.
Entirely agree with that, caller.
Dr. Francis, you know what this means? We have to do our next session.
Well, I'm not a difficult man to find, sir.
I know that. I am
literally a WhatsApp message away.
I just letting you know because you are hearing the conversation and you're seeing where it's going and you're hearing the interest. And there are persons who are on the live who are saying to me, hey, this is one of the best programs. One of the best programs. You know who comes on from time to time and whip up a discussion like this? My father.
Okay.
Yeah, he just come on with his historical mindset of why we are who we are and what we have to do to repair what he comes in and he's a lawyer, so he has his clinical legal way of bringing across his points, and there are times when he just give me problems with YouTube, but I love him to bits.
All that in it.
All that in it.
All that in it. All that in it. All that.
So what I think I will do, the next time we will have a discussion like this, I'm going to invite him to be on, so that the three of us can be talking, and I know that this is something that he will want to weigh in to, because I don't think he's fully aware of what you're talking about. But Dr. Francis, and I don't know if you are in front of a computer or if you're looking at the chat, but a lot of persons on the chat are very well. They're saying, "Well said, Dr. Francis." Well said, Pastor Google. We were, you see people into Dr. Francis.
Listen, one of the things I have always thought as a person who sees value in history is that there is a market for this.
Yes,
we
there
have this
is.
belief that people are not interested in education. That is
lies.
That misrepresents the truth.
Yeah.
What they're not interested in is things that are not properly explained, things that are boring, things that are too dense. To me, history is always as interesting or as boring as the presenter. You prepare properly, you have the information available, you have the facts. Your job is to present it to people in a way that they can understand, that is resonant with them, that makes sense with them, that has meaning. And I've always tried to do that. You always say history is boring. I always say the historian is boring, not the history. And if you present things to people in a way that is digestible, that is sensible, that is logical, they'll be interested in it. And I've been doing this long enough to see the evidence of that for decades.
Yeah.
So it is for me a pleasure and a duty to do this kind of thing. I see this as a responsibility to my society. I'll say it again. We like to say in this country, education is free. It is not free. It is very expensive. Any of us who have children going to the University of the West Indies, every semester the state pays something like $150,000 for your child's education. Education in Trinidad and Tobago is very expensive. It is just subsidized by the state. I am the beneficiary of a very expensive public education. And because of that, I think I have a responsibility to my society, not just to be a good citizen, but to also use my skills and my ability to the benefit of my society and its peoples. And that's how I operate. Every job I have ever taken in my life has been with the same idea. I am going to do something that benefits my community, my society, and my people. And by my people, I mean all of the citizens of this country. So I see this kind of thing as a responsibility, as a duty. And as long as I have a breath in my body and a brain that still functions in a reasonably decent way, I will be doing this.
Thank you very much.
In some form or fashion.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna be keeping. I'm gonna keep in contact with you, Dr. Francis, where we're gonna have you back on. But the next time you're going to be on, I'm going to invite my dad to be with me, so that he can be a part of the discussion, and we can glean off each other and encourage people to be more aware of what's going on, and you can keep us abreast on and if you can have people from the chapter in from the UK on with us too, that's another thing too, so that we can it will excite us, because people will say, hey, we heard from somebody from the UK who Dr. Francis is connected to, and they're working hand in hand to try to educate us on the way forward.
Listen, there are people in this movement already, people from the UK, people from America, people from Canada. There is a whole diasporic movement. There's a whole movement, and we're just one part of it, but an important part of it. It will be my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Any closing remarks before you leave, Dr. Francis?
I was here to talk about reparations, but I am a patriotic citizen of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to end the way I started. Which is, all of us will understand we are facing difficult times, uncertain times, a quality of governance we have never seen in our history. But I want to tell our people, to remind our citizens that we are strong, that we will survive, we will put the pieces back together, we will not despair, we will persevere, and that brighter future of which all of us still dream will still be there. It will just require us to do the work to make it happen, not just for us, but for the ones who come after us. And I'm ending on that note.
Thank you very much, Dr. Francis.
My pleasure.
I said give me a F, O, and let them know that is the code. Oh Lord, some say the code is this, some tell me it's that, but I go hear the facts. Give me. We experiencing a global phenomenon. With serious issues, mankind choose to fool around. Then they go find out, facing real consequences, that when you play totish games, you win foolish prizes. The mighty US of A, look how them in disarray, because they forget the first dose of madness. So with the short-term memory, they welcome back Donald T to give that fascist a second term in office. But after they take the bait and they realize where's the fate, enough of them want to change the vote, but it is too late. You see the FA, FO, I see the FA, now they go FO. Plenty immigrants made their choice. Uncle Donald they're supporting, but he put their support on ice and themselves he start deporting. FA, FO, I see the FA. Now they go FO, but now Donald breaks in because it now so keen. He naming the Epstein files, so they now studying like they voting a presidential pedophile. FA, FO, I said the FA. Now they go FO. You see when you're ever wrong, there's no doubt. Even Uncle Sam will find out that what's sour in Bam Bam starts sweet in the mouth. When you shout FA.
FAFO. Well, I want to thank Dr. Francis again for being with us on Constructive Talk. Yep, boy, oh boy. Here now, Leah, before I leave, and before we end the program this evening, we had to talk about what is really going on in this place, you know. Well, what's really going on in this country. So there are 3 things I want to play for you guys. 3 things I want to play for you guys. And I want you to share the live and get persons, you know, involved in what we're about to talk about. Who is this? Right? Share the live and let's get persons involved in what we're going to talk about. Please tell somebody to get on the live. So today, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago spoke at the CARICOM at CARICOM, the opening of CARICOM. I don't know how many of you looked at it. I don't know how many of you listened to it. I don't know how you all feel about it. But here what's going on. Here what I see in Trinidad and Tobago. And here what I telling all you, we need to wake up. We need to wake up, Trinidad and Tobago. So take a listen to this.
Now let's return to the Prime Minister's address to CARICOM, which finished only moments ago. While Kamla Prasad-Bisesa pledged this country's commitment to CARICOM, her address defended her controversial stance on issues ranging from her admonishment of the Nicolas Maduro regime and her support for the United States.
In the presence of the regional leaders, the Prime Minister thanked U.S. President Donald Trump for his support in arresting this country's high murder rate.
Maybe in your islands you don't have the kind of crime we have. I know Prime Minister Hoslas, we tried to pass the Oswald bill in Trinidad. We were not as fortunate as you in the Parliament, but I know you have done well with your murder rate. So some of us, the crime is so bad. I cannot depend on just my military, my protective services, and certainly from you in the CARICOM, many of you do not have military or large police services to help us down there. So again, I repeat, you know, Trinidadians are saying, who vex loss? But we gain.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister also admonished the CARICOM Secretariat for not responding to a letter she sent questioning the circumstances surrounding the so-called kidnapping of Trinidad and Tobago citizen Brent Thomas.
The Prime Minister also criticized CARICOM governments who, she said, actively involve themselves in the domestic and political affairs of member states to assist certain political parties.
I'm sorry I have to share this, but it hurt me a lot when I saw what transpired within the last set of elections in the CARICOM. So CARICOM governments, if we are to hug up each other and cooperate, it cannot be that last week you sent your person down to St. Vincent or to Jamaica or to wherever, or to Guyana. You sent your political persons, not technocrats. You sent them down to campaign. I don't think that is right, because today I will have to face you. We are not red and we are not yellow, we are not blue, we are not green. We are all CARICOM persons.
A T&T national has been sentenced in the United States for smuggling over 200...
So I listened to that and I said, but like Miss Bisesa, something wrong. Something wrong. Something wrong. Take a listen to this.
Before the election, I am given a directive. Once I'm given a directive to do something, I have to do it. It's my work. I work for the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And at the same time, this is not just jumping on a holiday or just jumping and going somewhere. I have a directive to jump to St. Lucia. I have a directive to jump to St. Vincent to do what I have to do. The Yellow Z Code campaign has crossed into the Caribbean. And because I started the Yellow Z Code campaign, that is why I am here. So with that, I am over here supporting, because there's an election going on in St. Lucia and there's an election going on in St. Vincent. And this is the last week before the election. I am given a directive. Once I'm given a directive before the election, I am given a directive. Once I'm given a directive to do something, I have to do it. It's my work. I work for the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And at the same time, this is not just jumping on a holiday or just jumping and going somewhere. I have a directive to jump to St. Lucia. I have a directive to jump to St. Vincent to do what I have to do. The Yellow Z Code campaign has crossed into the Caribbean. And because I started the Yellow Z Code campaign, that is why I am here. So with that, I am over here supporting, because there's an election going on in St. Lucia and there's an election going on in St. Vincent. And this is the last week before the election. I am given a directive. Once I'm given a directive
...into this country.
Now let's return to the Prime Minister's address to CARICOM, which finished only moments ago. While Kamla Persad-Bissessar pledged this country's commitment to CARICOM, her address defended her controversial stance on issues ranging from her admonishment of the Nicolas Maduro regime and her support for the United States.
In the presence of the regional leaders, the Prime Minister thanked U.S. President Donald Trump for his support in arresting this country's high murder rate.
Maybe in your islands you don't have the kind of crime we have. I know Prime Minister Hosnes, we tried to pass the Oswald bill in Trinidad. We were not as fortunate as you in the parliament, but I know you have done well with your murder rate. So some of us, the crime is so bad. I cannot depend on just my military, my protective services, and certainly from you in the CARICOM, many of you do not have military or large police services to help us down there. So again, I repeat, you know, Trinidadians are saying, who vex loss? But we gained.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister also admonished the CARICOM Secretariat for not responding to a letter she sent questioning the circumstances surrounding the so-called kidnapping of Trinidad and Tobago citizen Brent Thomas.
The Prime Minister also criticized CARICOM governments who, she said, actively involve themselves in the domestic and political affairs of member states to assist certain political parties.
I'm sorry I have to share this, but it hurt me a lot when I saw what transpired within the last set of elections in the CARICOM. So CARICOM governments, if we are to hug up each other and cooperate, it cannot be that last week you sent your person down to St. Vincent or to Jamaica or to wherever, or to Guyana. You sent your political persons, not technocrats. You sent them down to campaign. I don't think that is right, because today I will have to face you. We are not red and we are not yellow, we are not blue, we are not green. We are all CARICOM persons.
A T&T national has been sentenced in the United States for smuggling over 200 firearms into this country.
Before the election, I am given a directive. Once I'm given a directive to do something, I have to do it. It's my work. I work for the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And at the same time, this is not just jumping on a holiday or just jumping and going somewhere. I have a directive to jump to St. Lucia. I have a directive to jump to St. Vincent to do what I have to do. The Yellow Zip Code campaign has crossed into the Caribbean. And because I started the Yellow Zip Code campaign, that is why I am here. So with that, I am over here supporting, because there's an election going on in St. Lucia and there's an election going on in St. Vincent. And this is the last week before the election. I am given a directive. Once I'm given a directive.
The man is given a directive, and once given a directive, he follows through with his directive. But your political leader is saying that she's disappointed. Really? Really, Trinidad and Tobago? Really? What is your view? What is your view? 464-7003. Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Pastor Google. Pastor Google, my eyes and my ears not deceiving me. What did that lady say in front of the CARICOM conference? I am very confused. Because you're hearing from the other guy who said that he have a directive from the government. So what's going on? Is that AI? Is that AI generated? Right? And next thing too, is it possible they could find the videos during the good times when she and Maduro and Josie were very chummy? Do you have those videos, Pastor Google? Because I hear all of a sudden now she's a capitalist and she has a problem with communists. So tell me something. You don't have a problem when you accepted monies from a communist country like China? You understand hypocrisy? And just years back in your full citation as Prime Minister, you were supporting Cuba. So what changed now, Pastor Google? I'm going to think about that again. We're all these so-called trade union men who supposed to be backing Cuba 100%. Cuba right now in dire need. Where these so-called hardcore people, the comrades and who fighting against the imperialists, Americans against for Cuba. Pastor Go, we were joking. Yes, you have a good night.
Thank you very much. What is your view? While I'm waiting for your call, I want to play something for you. Take a listen to this.
Good night, members. I want to say something here, and it will offend some, right? Kurt Moore's son just died because
Hello, good evening.
Hold on.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Pastor Google. Good night to you and all your listeners. But I don't understand our goodly Prime Minister, right, going to CARICOM to talk about people who influence other people's election when she did the same thing in St. Vincent, the same thing in another Caribbean country, and also she tried in Barbados. So I don't understand. It's like she wake up this morning and forget what she did yesterday. And then what make it more worse, Pastor Google? You go on the CARICOM to talk about crime? Why you going to do that? Talking about USA to help you with crime? Didn't help Trinidad with no crime. Trinidad crime is still high, and the USA was out there bombing. People die on the sea, and the crime rate was still high in Trinidad. It was never about crime. When the Prime Minister go out, she must not go out there to embarrass us. She must go out there to bring back business for us, not embarrass us. If she going out there, please don't embarrass the country. And whoever going with her, please check she features before she make it, so she don't have to embarrass us out there. That's all I have to say, Pastor Google.
Thank you very much.
good night, members. I want to say something here, and it will offend some, right? Kurt Moore's son just died because of what's telling people that he got a contract. Go and check him. And the fellas and them saying he ain't get them nothing. So they decide to come for him. Mr. Watts, you also told somebody, a gentleman that came to you from to form a carnival, and you told him you gave his part $60,000 plus to come by me for money. Why would you do something like that? Technically. Why would you do something like that? That is not fair to me. That is not fair to me. You didn't give me 60.
Hello, good evening.
Good afternoon, Pastor Google.
Hi, good evening.
I'm calling when Dr. Lovell was there. There too much of big people talk for me. I leave that alone. But when I listen to this Prime Minister today, talking about she wouldn't send people to a Caribbean country to fight the election in their places, I say, look at this woman. She does do things. And when she don't do it, she turn it around. Like if she didn't do it, eh? That is what she doing all along. Guys, how she fighting the election to win the seat that she is in right now. Right? So she fight it this way. She do she thing, and when she turn it around like she never do it, like it's somebody else doing it. What a lying woman. What a lying old woman. I wonder if God have a place for these people then. I wonder if he have a place for her. Anyhow, you know what he will do. And there will be a day when she will lie in her bed and ask God to forgive me for all that I have done to poor people in this country. Right? One day, we'll have a day she will lie in her bed and she will have to do that. Okay, Pastor Google? Have a blessed night.
All right. Thank you very much.
Good night, members. I want to say something here, and it will offend some, right? Kurt Moore's son just died because of what's telling people that he got a contract, go and check him. And the fellas and them saying he ain't get them nothing. So they decide to come for him. Mr.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Pastor Google. Well, my idea is, it seems as though she wants to be the president of the Caribbean. That's the only thing I feel that was shooting to be the president of the Caribbean. But my feeling is not going to happen. You understand? Later.
Good night, members. I want to say something here, and it will offend some, right? Kurt Moore's son just died because of what's telling people that he got a contract, go and check him. And the fellas and them saying he ain't get them nothing. So they decide to come for him. Mr. Watts, you also told somebody, a gentleman that came to you from to form a carnival, and you told him you gave his part $60,000 plus to come by me for money. Why would you do something like that? Technically. Why would you do something like that? That is not fair to me. That is not fair to me. You didn't give me $60,000. The committee received $60,000 from Ministry of Community Development. Stop telling people you gave me $60,000. You are putting a target on my back and my committee members. It is not nice to do this. Look at what is happening with Kurt Moore. His son died, right? After 6 this evening. Because of what you will be saying to other members and the constituents. You need to stop that. You need to stop that. This is a dangerous thing that you are doing. Telling people that you are giving contracts to persons and people are targeting them. This is not nice. You need to stop it.
What is this? What is this? 464-7003, 464-7003. What is your thoughts on the Prime Minister's statement at the CARICOM today? What is your thoughts about the Prime Minister's statement at CARICOM today? Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good night, Pastor Google.
Hi, good evening.
And good night to all the listeners. Yellow is the code. This is what the people wanted. Ready Mix gonna close down in the March the 31st.
I'm gonna play that just
That's
now.
What the people like. That's what the people like. Have a good night, Pastor Google.
Well, we caller said it. I'm going to play it now. Take a listen to this. Take a listen to this. People losing their jobs, you know.
In tonight's Business Watch, there's yet another shake-up in the construction sector. As 2 weeks after increasing the price of its cement, Trinidad Cement Limited has announced the closure of its subsidiary, Ready Mix Limited.
Peter Christopher tells us more.
In a notice posted to the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange on Tuesday, Trinidad Cement Limited confirms that following a written resolution of the Board of Directors of its subsidiary, Ready Mix West Indies Limited, dated Wednesday, February 18, 2026, the directors of Ready Mix Limited considered and unanimously agreed to permanently cease the company's aggregate and ready mix operations. when contacted, TCL issued a statement in which the company says this decision follows an extensive business evaluation initiated in response to decreased sales, escalated operational costs, and increased capital expenditure requirements that have adversely affected the company's profitability. The company adds, as a result of the permanent closure of Ready Mix Limited, all employees will regrettably be made redundant effective March 31st. Ready Mix Limited is committed to conducting this process with compassion and respect, ensuring full compliance with all relevant labor laws and providing support, guidance, and appropriate assistance to staff throughout the period. The statement from the company closes. Ready Mix Limited appreciates its long-standing role in the construction sector and thanks employees, customers, and partners for their ongoing dedication and support over the years. End quote. Ready Mix specializes in the production of concrete, aggregate, and pitron, and also owns a number of quarries in Trinidad. The announcement comes just under a month after TCL General Manager Gonzalo Rida Castillo warned that the proposed natural gas hike by the National Gas Company would have a significant effect on operations and lead to cement price increases. That cement price increase took effect on the 9th of February. Meanwhile, the Oilfield Workers Trade Union is expected to meet with Ready Mix's management at 1 p.m. on Thursday. On Monday, OWTU President General Ansel Roger and the executive of the OWTU met with Ready Mix workers in the wake of the decision by the board to wind up the company's operations. And now for a look at today's energy and foreign exchange prices.
I just call in now. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. So I just asking you guys to call in and see how you all feel about what you all are hearing. People losing their jobs. People losing their jobs. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, sir.
Google.
Yes, sir.
I called sometime in September. The same night you had the program after Emily Elias made a statement about suggesting the government should devalue the dollar from 9 to 1 minimum. And you had former Senator Tahaka Ubika, who was an economist. I think you need to get him back on, along with former Minister of the Ministry of Finance, Brian Manning, because I'm telling you, a devaluation of the TT dollar, like I told you in September, is imminent.
But
inevitable.
But wait, just now, caller, just now. Don't come off the line. Don't come off the line. Did you read or hear what the IMF had to say?
Yes, I did.
You didn't hear what the IMF had to say, man.
So
wait, just now. IMF warns prepare. That's now. Where is it? Trinidad and Tobago. All right. So the IMF, right, has warned that Trinidad and Tobago will need to Trinidad and Tobago government need to spending and hiring. The spending rate, you understand, need to be maintained.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Because what they're saying, I'm trying to pull it up here. My phone taking long to bring it up here. But it talks about the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. What they're saying here, the outlook of what they're saying about Trinidad and Tobago is nice, you know.
No, it's not right. It is not right. They say need to cut down the spending, reduce spending, and they're warning that the government need to basically...
Yes. Look at now come up here. The International Monetization Fund, the IMF, has warned that Trinidad and Tobago will need stricter control of government spending.
and also its currency. That's in black and white.
And it talks about and high inflation rate
Yes.
to maintain its fixed currency.
I'm telling
But
you,
you know,
it is coming.
caller, today I observed something. I don't know how many people realize it, but you know that the US dollar has gone up, right?
Yes, that's gone up a bit, yes. And why I think so? People need to understand the reason why they captured Maduro was about the US dollar, not petrodollar. Because then the dollar was at its weakest. Why you think they're in Iran right now? They want to get control of that oil reserves in Iran to boost up their petrodollar. People, why do you think they want Greenland? Because there's so many minerals, natural resources there that will help the US dollar. So right now the US dollar is rising a bit. It's a bit stronger. I think the euro has dropped because of getting control of the resources in Venezuela, and most likely they'll get control of Iran because they are orchestrating that there, and then they say no matter what the European Union says, they're going to take Greenland. That's what they said. So that's why the US dollar is very strong. People need to pay attention to that. And now, with so many people losing their jobs right now, a big enterprise like Ready Mix, a subsidiary of TCL, is going to close, and everybody is going to be made redundant. Watch a ripple effect, domino effect continue right after that. And the mid-year review is in May, June this year. It will be very interesting to see what the finance minister does. I am telling you, Pastor Google, within next year or two, we are going to an INF program. A devaluation is coming. It is inevitable. They are mismanaging this economy too bad, I'm telling you. Thank you very much, Pastor Google. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, caller. 4647003. Take a listen to this. I just drop in some bombshells for you. Take a listen to this one.
Councillors are tonight warning that chronic delays in government funding are leaving workers, councillors and corporations in financial distress. With some councillors reportedly facing eviction from their offices, Diego Martin Mayor Aquila Glasgow said that increases to councillors' allowances and secretarial support have not been matched by corresponding releases of funds to corporations. Meanwhile, Chairman of the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation, Josiah Austin, highlighted similar struggles at his corporation. He said the TPRC often receives government releases for salaries late, leaving staff unpaid on the deadline for payment.
There are situations where councillors and aldermen are being paid. Our salaries are coming in late. Also, the councillors in particular, the payments for the rental of offices, that too. Also, the situation with secretary, the rent, salaries for secretaries, several issues surrounding these payments. And it happens month to month, and it's something that has to be addressed.
In response, Local Government Minister Khadija Amin says the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government will continue to work with all municipal corporations to properly plan and manage their affairs in a timely manner, and also a manner that improves productivity and enhanced services to citizens.
In our top story this evening, Chief Secretary Farley Augustine says Tobagonians
are tonight warning that chronic delays in government funding are leaving workers, councillors and corporations in financial distress. With some councillors reportedly facing eviction from their offices, Diego Martin Mayor Aquila Glasgow said that increases to councillors' allowances and secretarial support have not been matched by corresponding releases of funds to corporations. Meanwhile, Chairman of the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation, Josiah Austin, highlighted similar struggles at his corporation. He said the TPRC often receives government releases for salaries late, leaving staff unpaid on the deadline for payment.
There are situations where councillors and aldermen are being paid. Our salaries are coming in late. Also, the councillors in particular, the payments for the rental of offices, that too. Also, the situation with secretary, the rent, salaries for secretaries, several issues surrounding these payments. And it happens month to month, and it's something that has to be addressed.
In response, Local Government Minister Khadija Amin says the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government will continue to work with all municipal corporations to properly plan and manage their affairs in a timely manner, and also a manner that improves productivity and enhanced services to citizens. Transport Minister Eli Zakur says a weekly schedule for the Blue Wave Harmony will be released on Friday.
Zakur made the announcement in the Senate today as he responded to Opposition Senator Melanie Roberts-Rajman, who asked when sea trials would end and a regular schedule published. Roberts-Rajman said the inconsistent sailings has been threatening Tobago's economy. Zakur could not say how long the ferry would take from one port to another, but promised to submit the answer in writing at a later date.
Well, on the back of those stories and responses, today we asked, are you satisfied with the authorities' actions to resolve the Tobago cargo crisis?
Here's what some of you had to say.
The People Say, brought to you by Excel Health TT, the official supplement of the CPL.
I think that they're doing as much as they could now, given the circumstances. I mean, it was just a series of unfortunate circumstances that found us where we are at now. I mean, I think in retrospect, a lot more could have been done from the planning aspect, but we are where we are, and I think they're just doing what they could now at this point, and hopefully it gets resolved.
I think they need to do more. The boat is not running properly, the Blue Wave or whatever it is. Then before that, we had a lot of losses because when the vans and they came down to go on the boat, they changed some of the days, some of the time when they reach days when they know, okay, no sailing this morning.
To me, this situation exposes a deeper and a wider issue, right? The issue of food security, right? And another issue of really internal, we like to use autonomizing ourselves.
I believe that the government is doing the best that they can do. I said that because of what I can remember previously when cement and all things and big stone was thrown in. The vessel we had was giving problem as you fix one thing, another thing gone wrong.
It's not fair to the people who travel in, the customers who travel in on the boat. And as a small businessman, we feeling the effects. Because when I can't get my goods, I can't sell. And I can't do a turnover properly. So it's not fair at all. They need to do something. THA need to step in and call on central government to do something better.
The People Say, brought to you by Excel Health TT, the official supplement of the CPL.
Is mislead Trinidad and Tobago.
Based on further investigation,
the UNC's National Economic Transformation Master Plan 2020 to 2025. This is Kamala's plan. As soon as we highlighted that they're going to devalue the dollar, if you go on their website today, they have taken it down because they are dishonest and all they seek to do is mislead Trinidad and Tobago.
Based on further investigations, Young also claimed that the UNC's plan includes selling state assets. He emphasized that these assets are critical to the government's ability to provide employment for citizens.
National Gas, NLCB, National Quarries, NP, MTS, Caribbean Airlines, NEDCO, TTT, T&Tech, WASA, E-Tech, Lake Asphalt, the port. Those are the UNC's plans. And watch and see how they try to distance themselves. Trinidad and Tobago, you are being cautioned and advised.
He cautioned the citizens about their choices ahead of the election, maintaining that if the UNC is elected, the country could face dire consequences.
Next week, Monday, if you take God out of your thoughts and you decide not to go and vote, and you decide not to vote for red, ready, and responsible PNM government, that, in addition to a devaluation of 15-1, in addition to the IMF reaching here within a year, will be what we will have to deal with.
Joshua Dan, Tobago Updates, the television news.
Since we are still in a tight financial spot, I would also urge that they consider the divestments or sale of certain state assets or state entities, because the proceeds from these sales will help to meet state spending without necessarily putting extra pressure on the debt levels. Plus, some of these entities and assets soak up a lot of much needed state finances each year through transfers, and these same state funds could be repurposed to more productive avenues.
With food security remaining a key area to be addressed, Dr. Arjun had this advice.
A clear plan could also be presented to lower the food import bill. This is something that I expect to see and to revamp, in order to revamp the agricultural sector through introducing, for example, smart agricultural technologies and practices locally that can optimize the agricultural production per acreage. Again, in line with the diversification thrust and reducing the dependency on food import.
You lose. And remember, I told you this here tonight. First thing they will say, get rid of CPEP. Get rid of URP. Get rid of reforestation. All the contract workers in the government, get rid of them. If the UNC gets their way and they start with their bag of poison goodies, it is going to lead to a devaluation. If UNC wins, you lose.
Borrowing to fund consumption or deferred obligations simply shifts the burden to future generations. On this score, Madam Vice President, it was concerning to me that the budget presented by the Honourable Minister did not mention the government's intention to borrow $18.96 billion. There was no mention of that in the budget presentation. But when you went to one of the yellow books, you saw borrowing of 18.965. And borrowing by itself is not a problem, particularly when you have declining revenues. That is not the issue. What concerns me is the change in the consumption of the borrowing. In recent years, government debt has been largely domestically financed, but the 2026 estimates point to a pivot towards foreign borrowing. So of the 18.965 billion, 8.1 billion comes from the domestic market and 10.9 billion comes from the international market. This shift in the composition of borrowing will bring higher costs, greater exchange rate risk, and of course, repayment obligations in foreign currency. For the benefit of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, let me be pellucidly clear. Each dollar that we borrow in foreign exchange must be repaid in foreign exchange. And I ask, how will these debts, because borrowing is a debt to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, how will these debts be serviced without worsening the foreign exchange strain or without driving the debt to GDP ratio higher? Those are fundamentals, Madam Vice President. The implication of this pivot to foreign borrowing is that the country must earn or save foreign dollars through exports, reserves, drawing down on reserves, or further borrowing. If these inflows of foreign exchange do not materialize, current and future generations will shoulder the burden through a devaluation process, most likely, or higher taxation. because every dollar borrowed today, let me repeat, every dollar borrowed today is a promise to repay in foreign exchange tomorrow.
Let me say here tonight to public servants, wherever you may be, if your president succeeds in removing the PNM from office, many thousands of you will follow that by removing yourself out of your jobs. And let me tell you why. The government of Trinidad and Tobago led most of the years by caring PNM governments, have taken on the responsibility of ensuring a quality of life for people in this country that is now at the level of almost impossible to fund beyond where we are. In a $60 billion budget, the largest expenditure in that budget is on the monthly payment to public servants wherever they might be. Every month, on average, not just public servants on the Gazette, you know, the government supports the payroll of some state enterprises. If WASA doesn't get a $200 billion from the Minister of Finance virtually every month, WASA workers cannot be paid consistently in the way that they have been, you know. But as Prime Minister, I could tell you, the hardest job of the government and of the Prime Minister is to ensure that there are revenues coming in on one side to ensure that expenditure can be supported on the other side. And nobody could give you any other equation. The singular equation that you should be concerned about in this country now is what is our revenue situation and what is our expenditure situation. If you listen to the PSA leader and the UNC and their campaign in 2025, all they are concerned about is improving and expanding the expenditure side of the equation. And to do that, to make it, honey, quoted for you, they tell you things like they will increase public servants' pay by 10%. Ladies and gentlemen, from this platform tonight, I could tell you, once a government comes in and gets on that pathway of making that kind of increase to public servants, the highway has to be labeled two ways. One, you are going to end up at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund station, and you're going to get there by the road called devaluation. And let me tell all of you something tonight. If God forbid, and there's a government in office that finds itself without revenues to meet the monthly expenditure to public servants, the one thing that government will not do is to write checks to you and then the checks bounce in the bank. Governments don't operate so. Before you get to that point where the checks will bounce in the bank, you cut the liability of requiring to write the checks. You know what that means? When the government finds itself in a position not being able to pay the payroll, ask Barbados what happened. It's tens of thousands of public servants that come off the payroll. Governments don't have you on the payroll working and can't pay you. They take you off the payroll. In this country, anybody who is telling you that they will incur expenditure that we all know the revenues cannot support, they are telling you in code that they intend to cut the public service. And let me tell you what my source of information tells me when I try to understand what the UNC is about. You know what the UNC is saying quietly and secretly? If they ever get to that situation where they come into office and they can't pay the bills that they're committed to and they cut the public service, is mainly PNM supporters that will be affected, because the bulk of the public service is East-West Corridor people supporting the PNM.
I want to start by reading a quote for you that is trending online now. It Someone sent it to me and I saw it so many times. I think it's good for us to read this quote. I'm sure when I start to read it, you will be familiar with it. It says, out of hatred for the cockroach, the ants voted for the insecticide. Out of hatred for the cockroach, the ants voted for the insecticide. They all died, big on in the tail, including the housefly that didn't even vote. They all died, including the housefly that didn't even vote. It says an African proverb, but it could be a Trinidadian and Tobagonian proverb. It is so true.
Big sail. The name of the singer, Queen Victoria.
Africans, for sale, for sale, for sale. Africans, for sale, for sale, for sale. All your good, yes? I was lying with some old men before the election, and well, I was amazed of their discussion. They were discussing the election of 2025, how Africans were selling cheap and UNC buying dead or alive. One old man shout out, fellas, give me your attention. UNC can't win by themselves, no election. You see, they're sitting and they're planning to make a decision. So she called out Shilaga, who the old FIFA wanted man. She said, call the trade union, let we start negotiations. And we could call out a big sale and we go buy out some Africans. Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying Africans. Sing the thing. Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying Africans. She don't have all she chance and she the honor rhymes. No, what she need is some slave names, man, some big strong Africans. Africans for sale.
Thank you all very much. There was a time, as we welcome today another female leader, President of Suriname, congratulations. There was a time when it was just two of us. First it was me, and then it was Mia. And then it was Mia, and it was me again. And now it's me again. So thank you all very much as we join with our female leaders at this CARICOM heads. I just want to give you a short moment of some light relief. I'm not a great comedian, but I'll try. So thank you for your introduction. Mia, you remember, as Ministers of Education, we would go to schools and give speeches. And so we'd get the introductions there. So one school decided they will not use an adult to introduce me. They will use a little boy. He was just 11 plus, just wrote the exam and went into secondary school. So he comes to the mic and he says, I am not going to make any long, boring speech. My job here is to introduce Kamla. So I'm not making that long, boring speech, but here's the person who will make that speech. Kamla Prasad, Mr. Prime Minister Drew, thank you for your hospitality, the warmth that we received here in St. Kitts. And you well know it's not my first visit. I had the pleasure to work here with Mia. We were both young budding lawyers then. We are still budding lawyers, but we did work together here in St. Kitts, and I'm very happy of the warmth we receive from you, Prime Minister, and your family, and of course the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Fellow CARICOM heads, dignitaries, distinguished guests, I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting from one Twin Island Republic to another one here, Trinidad and Tobago, Chief Secretary Farley, the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House Assembly. Please welcome him. For the first time, we have a Tobago representative in the CARICOM. So distinguished members all here, and of course, all the visitors who've joined us from the UAE, please welcome Minister Kabi. She's here with her minister. Can we welcome her to St. Kitts? And today, I have to say some things that may be good and kind, but I have to also face the reality of what is happening in my own country, in Trinidad and Tobago. And so I welcome the words of Prime Minister Holness when he spoke of the balanced way that he looked at the CARICOM. We all have different pathways to walk, but our destination, our goal, our aim is the same. It's for a better quality of life for the people in our country and for the whole of the region. So, Prime Minister Holness, we thank you. We were very happy with your words, the balanced approach that you took. And of course, we really admired the resilience of the Jamaican people when you weathered that horrible, devastating storm in Jamaica. We all took notice, and we're really admiring what you've transitioned then and what you're still doing now. So Trinidad and Tobago, today we reaffirm our commitment to remain a vested partner in the work of CARICOM. But I also like to take an opportunity for a short time to speak openly and constructively for the benefit of all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. To date, it remains very unsettling to me that in October 2022, the then sitting T&T government coordinated the kidnapping of a Trinidad citizen from another CARICOM state. He was visiting another CARICOM state, and he was kidnapped. Our Supreme Court has ruled that he was kidnapped. He was placed in handcuffs, transported to the airport, and then back to Trinidad. I think an RSS plane was used to transport him. He was kidnapped. And then I was opposition leader. I wrote to the CARICOM Secretariat, that's 2022. 2022. I wrote to the Secretariat of the CARICOM asking, what happened? How could you have facilitated kidnapping of a T&T citizen? Please let us know what was happening and how it happened. To date, that was 2022, I have not had a response from the Secretariat. So I say to CARICOM, that response, non-response, it may be the result of poor management, lax accountability, or most concerning, that one ceases to be recognized by the Secretariat as a member citizen of CARICOM when not in government. And so I want to reaffirm that the CARICOM should be the voice for all, not just for the governing parties, not just for those in the Caribbean who form government parties. And so I'd ask you, we have to chart a way forward. Yes, we won our elections. Yes, we are the majority parties, all of us here, all the heads. But we were all in opposition once, and we may all be in opposition again. But we must work together for all of our nations, all our citizens, whether they belong to the governing party or whether they belong to the opposing parties. So that, I say, still concerns me. How one of my citizens was kidnapped in another CARICOM state, and when I inquired, the Secretariat could not give me an answer up to today. That should never happen. CARICOM as an organization should not be misused by anyone to benefit or protect political parties and friends affiliated with the incumbent government. CARICOM governments and their political parties who actively involve themselves in the domestic and political affairs of member states to assist sister or brother parties cannot then expect that when we come together that we must hug up each other. When in the last election you sent your missives, you sent your people from your party to openly campaign against another political party. I'm sorry I have to share this, but it hurt me a lot when I saw what transpired within the last set of elections in the CARICOM. So CARICOM governments, if we had to hug up each other and cooperate, it cannot be that last week you sent your person down to St. Vincent or to Jamaica or to wherever, to Guyana. You sent your political persons, not technocrats. You sent them down to campaign. I don't think that is right, because today I will have to face you. We are not red and we are not yellow, we are not blue, we are not green. We are all CARICOM persons, and we must give that respect to every single one. And no leader here sitting would want another CARICOM head of state to send people to campaign in your domain. That should never happen. So that has led to what I say, unneeded factional divisions and private conflicts between regional leaders and political parties. And of course, it hinders the progress of the CARICOM. As we move forward, I congratulate the other speakers before me, and I'm in tune with what you're saying. So I will keep mine down a bit, because we had a great discourse from Prime Minister Holness as former chair. And I want to say, Trinidad and Tobago, like you, sir, we respect the sovereign right of CARICOM members with respect to your choice for national security for your nation and respect to your choice for foreign policy. We respect that sovereignty, and we expect no less from others. We took very careful note of what happened in the CARICOM in 2025, when my government chose to lend support then to the Nicolas Maduro regime. And despite repeated threats against two fellow CARICOM members from Venezuela, most of the CARICOM stood against the two. Only two were threatened. One was Guyana, still under threat. I openly said that if they touch Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago will be there with you and stand with you. And the other one was Trinidad and Tobago. We are threatened, and we are still threatened by Venezuela. I'll say a little more about that in a moment. So how could a CARICOM be a zone of peace when a narco-dictator who imprisoned and killed thousands of civilians and opposition members, you will see recently over 300 persons from the opposition in Venezuela have been released. They were in prison because of politics. So how can it be, when that regime was threatening violence to two CARICOM member states, there was no voice from the CARICOM? We were talking about a zone of peace. And in my respectful view, my country is not a zone of peace, and I'll tell you why. Because of the unreliability of the CARICOM in the above situation, T&T Guyana, we cannot bind ourselves to the same political ideologies, the same foreign issues, and the same security policies of the entire CARICOM. That's why I welcome Prime Minister Holness' words, that we have each our own pathway to walk, depending on what is happening in our country. And so, my friends, I say, going forward, we will work with the CARICOM. We were invested in the CARICOM. We've been there from day one, and we want to be there after the end and the beginning and in the end. We want to be there with the CARICOM. It's very vital. I'm a CARICOM child, I lived in Jamaica as Prime Minister. I studied in Jamaica 14 years. I studied there. I lectured at the university in Jamaica. I lived in Barbados. My child was born in Barbados. My son is Bajan. Recently he was trying to apply to UE to get into UA law school. And when he took his Bajan passport, they said, no. You have to come and bring a TT ID card. Sounds like a joking matter, but a serious matter. May you know that. My son is born in Barbados, and of course Trinidad. So I've had that experience of living and working Jamaica, Barbados, and of course my own country, Trinidad and Tobago. So we will want to have our own foreign issues, policies, defend our sovereignty as we see best. And so I come to the elephant that might be in the room. I come to the USA and the cooperation that we had with the USA. Thanks to President Trump, thanks to Secretary Rubio and the US military, I say thank you today for standing firm against narco-trafficking, human and arms smuggling originated from Venezuela. That is what we were facing in Trinidad and Tobago. Maybe some of you other islands in the Caribbean, your nations do not have that level of illegal migration and, of course, the crime. So in 2024, crime was being treated as a public health gimmick. It was dubbed a public health issue. It's not a public health issue. Because of the crime, you're not alive to get any public health. You're dead. That's what the crime is like. So don't talk to me about a zone of peace when I will tell you, Trinidad and Tobago, 1.4 million people. We recorded 623 murders in 1 year, in 2024. And 40% of those murders, they were gang-related, driven by narcotics, by firearms from smuggling from Venezuela, and gangs coming out of Venezuela and mingling and mixing with gangs in Trinidad. In 2025, change of government, change of policy to treat with the drug cartels and the gangs as violent terrorist organizations. The military action by the American military in the Caribbean caused, you know what happened in our country? Caused our murder rate to decrease by 42%. You know what that meant? There were 257 less murders in T&T. I can say thanks again to President Trump. And thanks again to Secretary Rubio, Marco Rubio. I thank them and the US military for the cooperation and what they shared with us for national security matters. Maybe in your islands you don't have the kind of crime we have. I know Prime Minister Hosler, as we tried to pass the Oslozo bill in Trinidad, we were not as fortunate as you in the parliament, but I know you have done well with your murder rate. So some of us, the crime is so bad, I cannot depend on just my military, my protective services, and certainly from you in the CARICOM, many of you do not have military or large police services to help us down there. So again, I repeat, you know, in Trinidad there's a saying, who vex lost? But we gained from the help, I'm saying, that military help, and I will welcome them again. So we changed the policy and we were able to bring those murders down by 42%. As I said, that's 257 less people who would have been dead had we not taken that course of action. So let me finally take this opportunity to sympathize with the government and people of Mexico, as Prime Minister Holness mentioned, with regards to the cartel-fueled mass violence happening there. That could have been Trinidad and Tobago if we did not take the action we did. To partner with the US is not to undermine the Caribbean region, but to defend it. T&T will continue to cooperate with the US in the best interests of our citizens to drive destabilizing and destructive forces out of our country, out of our region, and out of our hemisphere. On the issue of full and free movement, I'll go quickly here, just a few points. I know we are all committed to full and free movement. I know several CARICOM islands are moving forward with that. But in Trinidad and Tobago, again, illegal migration is a big problem. It has been left to flourish not just in T&T but elsewhere. Currently, Trinbagonian taxpayers, we pay the bills for the tens of thousands of illegal migrants who have come into our country. It has put an enormous strain on our health services, government services, financial resources, and we are working diligently to resolve this illegal immigration crisis that we have. Again, many of you may not have it, but Venezuela is just 7 miles away from us. And we're going through right now to try to identify and do a registration exercise, because there are thousands of them who are a drain on the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. So at this time, I would say the greatest respect, Prime Minister Drew, Trinidad and Tobago, we are fully committed in principle to the full and free movement, but we have to deal with the thousands of illegal ones I already have in my country. So I will say, not at this time, but we agree in principle to full and free movement. And then there's the global focus on Cuba, right here in our CARICOM. And let me remind me and us, every single leader in this room was elected by a free and fair democratic election. Everyone in our countries. And so I ask, why do some CARICOM governments and political parties believe that they and their parties and their supporters should have the right to contest democratic elections to choose them as leaders, but the Cuban citizens have no right to free and fair election? And whilst I talk with you, Prime Minister Holness, I empathize with the people, the good people of Cuba, but there's a regime that's a dictatorial one, and none of us want that in our country, not one of us. Otherwise we wouldn't be here today. We were all elected by free and fair elections, and so we cannot advocate for others to live under communism and dictatorship, but we want to live here in our CARICOM region under democracy and capitalism. That's an oxymoron, it's a contradiction. For ourselves, we want free democracy, but tell the Cuban people, okay, we feel sorry for you. It can't work. And as you said, Prime Minister Holness, we have to find a mechanism for the humanitarian efforts of the people of Cuba, but at the same time, we cannot, and I will not, Trinidad and Tobago will not support a dictatorship in Cuba or anywhere else. We will not support it. What we do, we support regular, free and fair democratic elections in a multi-party system. All citizens must have equality before the law. There must be the rule of law. There must be majority rule and minority rights. We must have the separation of powers and the checks and balances. We must have accountability and transparency. We must have freedom of expression and association. And for us in Trinidad and Tobago, we must have capitalism. We will not support dictatorships. I turn to Haiti quite briefly. In Haiti, democracy continues to be under threat. For decades we have been saying, as the custodian Trinidad is Haiti, I'm sorry, Haiti, we are sorry, and we are still sorry decades and decades after. Armed gangs, political collapse, food insecurity have converged to overwhelm democracy and create a protracted emergency. We in Trinidad and Tobago, we support the United States and Panama's proposed gang suppression force to subdue violent gangs and to help restore order in Haiti. We are committed to sharing the burden with the US and Panama and other willing countries to assist the gang suppression force in bringing peace to Haiti. We have to come together to help them. In conclusion, I say, I began by reaffirming Trinidad and Tobago's commitment to CARICOM. In that spirit of regional partnership, we warmly invite member states to encourage their nationals to take advantage of the new educational opportunities in Trinidad and Tobago. We have established, we are working on it now, we had built it 10 years ago, it was shut down, the South Campus of the UWI. We welcome all students from CARICOM. We want to open it in September in the new academic year. So we welcome CARICOM students to come to us for those additional spaces at the UWI. And in addition, we have reopened the Couva Children's Hospital, and we hope to get some help from the UAE. They're here today, we met with them, our delegates met with them, for a full opening of that Couva Children's Hospital, which we open up as well. A state-of-the-art children's hospital, we open to all citizens of the CARICOM. Please come, we have a campus, education is a passport out of poverty. Take advantage of that extra campus, and of course, the spaces and the beds at the Couva Children's Hospital. We look forward to collective coordination and cooperation whenever and wherever our policies and initiatives align with those of the CARICOM. However, as I close, I say T&T will put our national interests first. Our citizens will choose our path forward. And so, let us all move beyond words. I had a joke with some of my staff who were here, the famous NATO, no action, talk only. Let's not continue all the talking, and let's what you did for the theme, beyond words, action today for thriving, sustainable CARICOM. I thank you very much, and may the good Lord continue to bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
You know, I wanted to know who was clapping when she talked. When she was talking, I wanted to know who was clapping. Honestly, you know. I said, but who is these people clapping? When this woman talking, boy? Me and Motley and them clapping? But when she said that she had some of her staff there, I said, okay then. Those are the persons who was clapping. I understand now. I understand now, Miss Bissester, you walk with your tier team. Well, I don't know. Anybody could tell me if me and Motley spoke already. I wasn't able to get anything from me and Motley. Right? I wasn't able to get anything from Mia Motley. But if any of you are aware if Mia Motley would have spoken, then the Prime Minister Barbados, then I would play it sometime. Alright? So boy oh boy. So Fally and they clap. And the staff clap. Well, only keep clapping. Only keep clapping. Have a good evening, everybody. Talk to you guys tomorrow, please God. And remember to share the live and tell somebody to tell somebody that we are live on Constructive Talk.
Africans for sale, Tobago and Trinidad. Oh, somebody pinch me. Hey, UNC sitting and they're waiting patiently. With about 16 safe seats, they don't win that already. The woman said, I have my people and they are born UNCs. Now all I need is some Africans who got their names out of slavery. She said that she here, they're really selling cheap. And she could buy them very cheap, 500 and a jersey. A lot of people will cry when she's finished with CPEP. Because she is not holding back them P&M have nothing to get. She said this party be for country, all you never forget. She will care for her people and she have no blasting regret. Africans for sale, we buying Africans. She buying Africans for sale. Listen, we buying Africans. She said we like crab in a barrel, we pulling each other down. But I want their votes, so I jam them the winning song. And so they know it. Africans when UNC wins, everybody wins. Africans for sale, Tobago and Trinidad. Hi, who called me? I want this verse, no right? Black mines in Tobago, she's working on them with ease. But she's not afraid because monkeys say cool breeze. She said the last time she was easy, this time there is no room for mistakes. Cause when she's done with Tobago, it's either they make or break. She has her eyes on Moruga, especially Samuel Cooper. They got a lot of P&M houses, but none of them can remember. She's buying some in 6 company because they're nice, they're bad and they're trim. Their ancestors came from Africa and all of them is Americans. She passed through 5th company and she bounced up Madingo. Well, boy, she makes she name cause she gets Africans. Africans for sale, Listen this.
We buying African.
The Faisal was pretty serious with a reach in the cemetery. He said, I'm waiting for refinery point. That man had to be crazy. What?
Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying good or bad. Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. Tobago and Trinidad.
I never meet too commercial man so. She said my people are loyal. They don't vote for other parties. But them P&M people just show them some money, staggered roti. She said I have my safe seats in the safe hands of Caroni. She go on to St. Couva, straight down to St. Paris. She said I love my people. For 10 years we out in the rain. But when I get back in there, things will never be the same. To all of my people, you must get your rightful place. And I don't care who's sitting there and think I am talking race. You all know what's hurting me. You see that, Dr. Rowley? We don't hide up all we money. The damn man change the currency. Hey! Africans
for sale,
hey,
for sale,
hey,
for sale.
Hey.
We buying African.
Kill them.
Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying African.
They bought out PSA. They got them for 10%. Now they could beat the chest and laugh because they know it's money well spent. All your love, all your
Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying good or bad. Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. Tobago and Trinidad. Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying Africans. Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying Africans. Africans for sale, for sale, for sale. We buying Africans.
Information provided by the speakers and or presenter on Facebook and YouTube is for general informational purposes only. All information is provided in good faith. However, Constructive Talk makes no representation or warranty of any kind, express or implied, regarding the accuracy, adequacy, validity, reliability, availability, or completeness of this information.